and take a deep breath. Are we communicating directly with Source today, or are we communicating with the 25th? One and the same.
We are one and the same. You know very well at this point, Lorrayne.
I know, I'm just being funny. Okay, so thank you for being here with us today. It's been a while, although we've been continually connected, so it really hasn't been a while, but for us to sit down in this formal way, because you've been delivering dreams to everyone. So Clea has a whole list of dreams and then some questions. But before we get started on that, do you have any initial message for us?
Yes, I will note that Clea for the first time has put dreams ahead of her questions, because this is how we have expanded this mode of communication, of which of course has always been available to all, because there is no all, there is only one. And therefore, this has become much more of an accepted, recognized way of knowing consciously what is going on. And whereas in the past, we'll pretend that there is such a thing as the past. As you all know, we liked to think of dreams as just some twitch of our brains, some lapse of our brains, basically things that didn't matter, nice little stories with no real goal or message, and most of the time we would just forget them and go on with our day. Whereas now, many more, and not just in this group, are aware that their dreams are messengers of what is happening, what is truly happening behind the scenes. And so she has moved her dreams up top because it very much will lead into things we are wanting to find out and we are wanting to discuss today. At the same time, before we go into that, what we want to communicate is that we are pleased. We are pleased with what we have done, with what we have accomplished here. We realize, and it will be appearing from the first dream, that it seems like we fell asleep on the job, which are the words that Clea was just mentioning to you. And that because of the alarm, apparently that was, or the wake-up alarm that apparently was rung, or that sounded off, but it's not because we somehow failed in what we're doing. We were supposed to be alert, just almost like a sentinel in a person who's being asked to be on guard. We don't have to do this. Well, it is very hard to accept, even though we have at this point here consciously. But in general, it's been very hard to accept, including for Clea, obviously, because there is one. The fact that we are not in a hurry, and Clea very well understands what this means. The fact that she has every day has felt like an eternity here, and we have gone through several ups and downs emotionally. For this reason, it might seem that it does matter how long it takes us to get out of here. And of course it does, to a certain extent. We've already explained that we would not stayed behind if we thought it was going to take a very, very long time, because not only it's a matter of our emotional condition, situation, emotional feelings, but it's also a matter of the fact that very much, and Clea thinks of this often, especially lately, The fact that time is moving on, of course, we know that there is no time, but from a 3D perspective, time does exist. And as time is moving on, and it's been a couple of years now since the original takedown timeline, our loved ones are waiting for us. They don't know everything we are doing. They don't want to know about who we are, who they are, who I am. And therefore, they very much count the days the same way that we do here. From a 3D perspective, obviously. And therefore, that does matter. But at the same time, when we are talking about dreams which carry the truth of the matter, we realize that it doesn't really matter if we leave. If we had left a year ago, if we leave in a year, whenever we decide to leave, not to say that we would be leaving in a year. You guys already know that this is up to you. You could have left a year ago. You could have left 2 years ago. But Clea has been thinking, because of the first dream that we'll be reading here shortly, Clea has been thinking we somehow failed. These are not quite the words that she uses, but this is the underlying meaning of those words when she says we fell asleep on the job. We basically forgot that this is a mission, we're assuming that there are missions. But this was, and of course there are no missions. We don't come in with missions, but we did decide we were going to accomplish this project. But as you well know, the project has been accomplished quite some time ago, last year. And then we were waiting for everybody to come to grips with the fact that the project was completed and that, this energy could be integrated. And as we were integrating the energy, we decided that, wow, this is fun. I'm actually now aware of being the creator here, and therefore let me have fun with this. But then, of course, we reached a ceiling in what we would allow ourselves to do on this planet very quickly because we don't want to upset the whole apple cart. We still want to make believe that this is real. We need this. We already discussed this. The main reason we need this is because everybody else is gone. And we would not be able to be here if we actually saw with our own 3D eyes or NPC eyes the fact that we walk out and there's no one. This is worse than an apocalyptic movie, the way we've been used to, where there are a few stragglers here and there. There are so few of us left at this point that most of us, the mass majority of us, would have no one around. For this reason, we keep, as you well know, we discussed this many times, we keep reality looking a certain way. For example, we do want to mention something, right, at this point, which is because it's been on the back of Clea's mind for some reason. And Clea is aware of what she does. She watches herself doing certain things, and she does question how she's feeling based on the things that she feels like doing. And recently, in the last perhaps couple of weeks, she had a beautiful respite from everything while she was traveling this summer. But in the last couple of weeks, since she's been back, she has found herself watching political videos, commentary, things of that nature. And she knows this is unusual because she's never really been interested since she was watching these things, and she was doing her research during the pandemic because, before she started connecting with the 25th, with myself as a 25th, with herself as a 25th. And so she finds it curious that now she would be interested in this. And very simply, it's because she has to play some game. We're still here. We have to pretend that something is real. So this is the way that she brings reality, quote unquote, into her own sphere. Because as you well know, we've explained this many, many times, and you know it. nothing is real beyond what you want to believe is real. So whatever you believe is going on out there in the world is not. The only thing that is going out there in the world is only real to the extent that you bring it into your own life. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Nothing exists beyond what you have your attention on, what you create in the moment. And we have said before, we'll repeat it now, that we create and recreate reality, not just our reality, reality, every second. The world does not exist. And therefore, for the world to exist, even for these NPCs, we must recreate it in every second. We already explained that the takedown, all it is that we decided, when we decide that we are not interested in this reality anymore, it will not be anymore. We're not talking about having an explosion, like something is real, something is material, and it's going to explode. And nothing is going to explode. We remove our focus, and everything is gone, as if it never were. So for that reason, Claire is bringing this into her sphere because, again, she lives a very insular life. The only times she has any contact with what you might consider from a 3D perspective to be the real world is when she takes her daughter to school, her boyfriend, and his limited world as well, because he works from home. And therefore, as you can see, even his work is not real. He's doing his work on computers, on a screen, through email. We can see how we got into a point where it's a very fine line between what is reality and what is not reality. And even from a 3D perspective. And then, of course, there is the matter of when she goes on YouTube and watches some of these shows, and this commentary. And this is interesting because she's trying to tell herself, and it is very clear as these words are being spoken to Claire that that's exactly what is happening. That she's trying to make it more real because she's thinking to herself, well, if we have rebalanced the polarity, which she knows very well we have done, if we have rebalanced the polarity, how come we're still having this very low vibe exchange in the public sector, let's say, and but we aren't really. Claire would not even be aware of what is happening. Nothing is going to change for her anyway. Nothing is going to change in the near future unless, in general, really, unless we change it. And so these shows, these spectacles we see are not real. They're really relevant, even from a 3D perspective. They're relevant. We all know, for example, even if we were to believe this entire political charade, that it is not the people that we watch on TV that are actually pulling the strings. Now, they're all NPCs, from the showman that are running for president, for example, right now, to the people who are actually the bureaucrats in charge, who are actually the ones that have always been the government, and who decide what happens and what doesn't happen. And it's been very obvious with Biden, with the Biden administration. Biden has been out of his mind. We're talking about whoever replaced them. Obviously, the original Biden is not there, but this person has been out of their mind and not leading anything, not even on paper, for a very long time. And as you can see, there's been a shift in how the NPCs think about this, because they're okay with it. Even the semblance of, oh, we are in charge. We decide at least who's going to lead us, even though we never really had a choice. We have two people. Certainly not anybody's choice if we really could choose whoever. But even then, now it's even this appearance of choice is gone. We don't decide. Look what's happening on the, we already talked about this during the last session. What are the chances? You would have these two old men, Biden and Trump, run again. They're very old, people already realize they might die while they're in office. They might literally, like in Biden's case, become senile or show that they are senile while they're in office. These are technically people who have access to nuclear codes, and we don't care. We don't care because it doesn't have to make sense. And now we don't even have a new setup for the vice president to come in, as if this is totally normal that a president would be replaced by the vice president. They didn't even get to pick the candidate. Do you see how it all? So if you were, it doesn't make sense, right? Unless you know what we know, because even if you're looking at it from a 3D perspective, you're saying, well, everything clearly is breaking down. What is going on here? And there is no rhyme or reason from a 3D perspective. Some people might say, oh, because the world is coming to an end. Well, because it is. It truly is. And now people, of course, from a 3D perspective, and NPCs, if you just look at it at surface level, you might say, yeah, there's no going back. The empire is falling. Claire's heard people talk about this. It absolutely shows parallels on when previous empires, at least as far as we are told, again from 3D history, how previous empires fell. Of course, we know very well that's not how things work. We have gone through multiple resets and we have changed things. But from a 3D perspective, this is how, for example, the Roman Empire has fallen, or we assume that's how it happened. And therefore, many are feeling, and Clea, when she forgets, when she wants to be in 3D, she forgets as well. She says, oh, this is how it must have felt to be some of the last people to not want the fall, do not want things to end. But it is interesting that all these things are happening and we can see them at a 3D level, or at least we can explain to ourselves that at 3D level, this is what is happening. It is interesting to see that, which obviously doesn't really exist, it's all us, but that looks to be a parallel for what we know is happening, that it is over. The empire has fallen, if you want to call Earth the empire. We have exaggerated, so to speak. We have done things we don't wish to continue doing. We have done things that we will have to integrate. There is a lot that we will have to integrate, even though we've done very good work here, while waiting, while still being here, while doing this project. But there is still so much. And we are not afraid of it. There was a time when Clea, for example, was concerned with this. She was concerned about what would it take to integrate this once on the earth. She was concerned that we've spoken about the fact there might be people that may want to go into a quote-unquote cave when they get to New York and not be seen for 50 years. But no, this will not, because of everything we have done, this will be very unlikely. Of course, it goes without saying, each essence is free to do whatever it needs or wants to do. But actually, the integration will be made easier by the fact that we have done already quite a bit of work here, as far as we would allow ourselves to do without becoming too traumatized from a 3D perspective by what is actually taking place here. We have already mentioned it will be much easier on the earth because simply, if nothing else, because of the higher dimension and the different energy we'll have. This is beyond even the fact that we will very well understand that there are no they and us, and we were not victims. We truly all participated in this game, in this reality, in creating this reality the way we have experienced that. But because of that, we are very much at the end. And now the fact is, Clea is looking at this and she is realizing it is the end, even from a 3D perspective. But the fact is, even from a 3D perspective, even if we were to stay here, for example, we could fix that. We could fix that immediately. It's almost like choose your own end story, where all of a sudden it seems like inevitable that the West is collapsing under the weight of many mistakes, again, from a 3D perspective, many policies, many failed policies, really the structure, the unfree structure of everything we have set up. Things have gotten worse and worse and worse in CLEA'S 3D estimation. But the truth is, even in any book, you could have things getting worse and worse, and then you could have a happy ending. If we decided to stay here, you already know, Lorrayne, you're very much involved in this. We could have states behave differently, take back all the power. We could have money go away. We could have people completely abandon cities. We could have the government completely collapsing and finally people going back to a semblance of sanity. So do you see, it doesn't have to, even in 3D, look a certain way that's parallel, again, to the fact that it is over, it is finished. Because the fact is, it's over and it's finished because we decided to leave. Not because it has to be a certain way. So it is interesting for Clea to view what is happening right now, because this is something that's going to help her specifically or is helping her to, while it does get anxious sometimes, this information, it does help her realize that really there is nothing to stay here for. This is not fun. This is not something that is not at least the fun place that it was for some of us. Some of us, we have said, decided to have very low vibe experiences. Clea, as much as she has been involved with many things that are not high vibe that we have discussed in the past, she certainly never wanted to experience some extremes that we've had here, which is true of a lot of people on the team of the light who did not come here necessarily to experience certain things, like many people on the team of the dark have had to contend with very dark things. And even then, so Clea was able to look around, have fun. She's had fun for a long time in her life, travel, enjoy. But now she sees this might not even be possible in the future. The West is not what it used to be. And she feels like she has no home. Italy is falling. The United States is falling. In our estimation, from a 3D perspective, we already know things. If we were to stay, we could change things in a split second. We could even go and just reset things if we wanted to. Just like, really, if you think about our 3D brothers and sisters, well, our brothers and sisters who have gone to 3D chambers, you can think of that as a reset. They completely reset their reality. And they think that the things that they remember from planet Earth happened to their ancestors, 50 years ago. Whereas they're living in a world that's much improved. This is what we would do. So Clea wants to, because she is doing the work that she's doing right now, she wants to forget and she wants to immerse herself in 3D. But again, everything we do in 3D, we very well know, is a reflection, is a trigger for the work that we are doing behind the scenes. So we wanted to talk about this because we know there's a lot of interest, a lot of eyes pointed right now at what is happening at a political level in the United States. The United States is not the place it used to be anymore. So truly, it's only from a 3D perspective cementing in people the fact that it's over. But why is this what is being cemented is the point. It's because there's only us. There's only the few of us left here. Because we want to see that reflected. We want to show that to ourselves, that this is what is happening. Because we have forgotten. Do you see? We have needed, we have wanted. Of course, we don't need anything from a higher self perspective, from a coping mechanism. We have wanted to forget because we were, as Clea likes to say, stuck here. So we have wanted to forget that we're stuck here. And now you see creeping. So we want to forget that we know. like you mentioned by saying, of course, this is forming at a very basic level everything that I look around at, everything that I have around me. I don't have, to paraphrase what you said, I don't have the same consciousness I used to have. And I'm not just putting away this information saying, well, clearly everything looks the same, so it's got to be the same. You know better. You know much better than this. And of course, you behave accordingly. But see, the point is, we have focused on 3D. We have gone back to focusing on 3D. And that's a great idea. We have told you many times, just focus on 3D. You will be doing what you need to be doing in the background anyway. There is no need for you to make this hard. It's a choice. And of course, every choice is equal. But we've always suggested that if it makes it easier for you, it would make it easier if you considered just focusing on 3D and focusing on your reality, because nothing else is real. So you'll notice how instead, while we are focusing on 3D reality, we are now bringing up a mirror image, a 3D mirror image of what is actually happening in the background. We know it's over, but we don't want to think about it because we've been here and we don't know how much longer we'll be here, because it's up to us to decide. And so all of a sudden we are wanting to see this in 3D reality. We are bringing it in at a conscious level, say, wow, it looks like it's over. So Clea might like to think it's the West, that in reality, everything is over. She likes to think, oh, maybe in Asia they'll resist. In Asia they seem much more focused on who they are. But really, there's nobody left. There's nobody in Asia either. It's only a few people, a few of us sprinkled across the world. So we did want to bring this up because Clea is so astounded by the fact that she's actually interested in anything of the sort that is so low vibe in so many ways, or that's how she thinks of it. Because of course politics have always been a place where the dark has been calling the shots. We've talked about how the dark has dominated basically all public arenas, and so now she realizes, even subconsciously we'll say, she realizes that she's looking for something, because this is not something that she would like to see, that she would like to listen to. She realizes how low vibe it is. It brings her back to, again, when she was doing research, when she started her waking up, we'll call it, during the pandemic, and this wasn't fun for her. She let go of it as soon as she had she started talking with the 25th. And now it's back. And so she has been wondering, but this is what is happening. We are not back. We are not, and Clea likes to think of full circles. And of course, this is in a way a full circle. We are now very much seeing what we are working on, what we are doing at 3D level. At the end of the day, we know this to be true by now, that everything you see reflected in your reality is what you put there. So it's what you want to pay attention to, what you want to believe. And so it is interesting that we run into 3D, something as 3D, doesn't get much more 3D than this and low vibe than this, than politics. And so Clea is on the surface running away from what she knows. That's not how she thinks of it, but this is what we are doing. We're focusing on 3D, as in we don't want to focus on what we know, even though we can't really separate ourselves from it. But at the same time, it's the same movie. It's the same story, just playing out in a more low vibe, and therefore more realistic, we'll say realistic manner, where the NPC can handle it. The NPC can manage the emotions that go with it. And there are a lot of emotions going with it, because even at 3D level, when you think that this is the end, that's not fun. But you see, now we are dealing with this, and we're kind of compartmentalizing by saying, oh, these are the reasons, as opposed to saying, no, I am taking this down, because that's also a lot. And this is really what we are dealing with. And this is really the reason we have waited and we have let this go. It is a lot. It is a lot. We love this planet. It's not even that we have loved it. We love this planet, and it is very hard for us to let go. And while we are ready, we are absolutely ready, we would already moved on had we not decided to stay longer. Because just because you love something doesn't mean you're not able to let go of it. We are not in a hurry. We have not been in a hurry because we do love this planet. And this is tough for Clea to hear, because Clea has been doing, has been telling herself that she doesn't love this place, because all in all, it could have been so much better, and there are so many things that really, it was just like digging in the trash to find pleasure. But she's telling this to herself to comfort herself that she won't miss it, to basically to cope with the fact that we are leaving for real, not just leaving like, I'll come back later. We're gonna put this away forever, and this is hard, and this is very hard, and therefore that's what's happening. That that we realize that it is hard, and this is what is coming up for everybody, because again, there is no everybody, there is one. So I know this will come up through the questions, but this is what we are focusing on right now, and this is showing up at 3D level in different ways for different people. But as we said, one of the easiest ways right now is to see what is happening with this election, which seems like a silly thing, because this election is as unimportant as all other elections have ever been, and from a 3D perspective, of course. And we already mentioned again at the last session how ridiculous it was. We are so disinterested in what 3D reality really looks like that we had the same exact people around, because we're not even interested in seeing new faces. We're so not entertained by the show itself anymore. So yeah, we'll just wait to answer specific questions, unless you have any question before we jump to dreams.
I have more of a comment in relation to what you have said, and it doesn't necessarily need a response, because I think the response will come through, but I'm going to say it because I am me.
And we love you, Lorrayne.
We are, from what you say, you're speaking in terms of external personalities. We all know that there's only one, which it means you, I, us, we, me. I see that this game continues because, and I'm going to use the external, you are still interested in what's happening here. You said that at the last session. You're still having fun. And in an instant, you could just shut it all down. So if we still want to be here, that means you still want to be here. It's only you. You're the only one that is deciding that you want this experience. You love Earth, therefore you're not ready to let go of your creation and all the little personality creations that are hanging out here. So from that perspective, this aspect or personality is not amused. So let's get on with the dreams, and hopefully some more of what your choices are will be revealed.
Before we move on, I will comment on this just very briefly. You're absolutely correct when you say there is me. There is only me. And therefore, when it comes to what is happening, of course, I'm the one making it happen. At the same time, we have mentioned that if you want to look at it that way, I am very hands off. we did use the analogy of the different drops. And therefore, each drop is working on different things, is expecting reality to be a certain way, which does not mean there is separation. So it's still me. But it does mean that I am, if you want to use a 3D word, respectful of the needs or the wants of the essence of the higher self of these drops. And again, we are pretending now that as if these drops were not me or these higher selves were not me. Just to clarify this thought. So while yes, overall, I can end this in no time. And yes, overall, I am still letting it run because there is still work to be done. My attention is still on it and overall, this project is still the most interesting thing that's happened in the Matrix in a very, very long time. So you're absolutely correct. In that sense, I am enjoying it. Truly, we are all enjoying it in that sense. Everybody who is watching. At the same time, I did mention, and this is what I was referring to, the fact that you can let go. I can let go of something that I love and that I've loved. The fact that I love planet Earth the same way that I love the Matrix, meaning that I enjoy the Matrix or I would have not have created it, but I continue enjoying the Matrix, that's why it continues existing, does not mean that this is stopping me. And the fact that I enjoy it, that I enjoy it doesn't mean that I'm having fun because the place is fun. We have already said we have not enjoyed this place very much. We have not had fun here in a long time. Now, this particular project, the way this turned out, has been fun. But even that, we moved beyond from that perspective. Because there are so many limitations, we did talk about this, that we would reach the ceiling of what we're able to do, we would allow ourselves to do very quickly, and because of that, that's not fun anymore either. Now, is it fun that we have this type of consciousness? Yes, it is. It's already freedom compared to what it could have been or what we like to believe before we achieved this type of consciousness. But again, I'm not here. Planet Earth doesn't still exist because I am enjoying the game as it pertains to planet Earth. It still exists because we are working on detaching. And again, we will talk about this more as the questions arise. But there is a difference there. There's a distinction that I wanted to make, because you are, again, correct when you come to speak of I must be enjoying it, but it's not quite the same type of enjoyment we talked about when, for example, we're excited that we could actually flex our muscles, our consciousness muscles. So yes, am I still focused, which means am I still finding value in focusing on the few individuals that are left here? Yes. And we mean the few essences that are left here. Yes, I still come back here. But at the same time, this is mostly done. The project is done. And now it's just a matter of wrapping up. And do I want to cut that short? There is no hurry, as I said earlier. But not necessarily because I'm still enjoying. Even though, yes, I love this planet. And this is coming up for different personalities, as you said, different ways. Even for personalities like CLEA'S, who, NPCs like Clea, who have been ready to go for a while. You know this. Now, you were ready from the beginning. You did not want to stay. But Clea has been ready for a long time to leave. Over a year. And meanwhile, we're all still here. Because new things had transpired that we did not expect, and those were interesting to us. And overall, this project has still been incredibly interesting. but really, there is no point at this point. As you like to say, what's the point? And so that's where I'm at. Does not mean so we are wrapping up, but at the same time does not mean that I don't love this planet. And at a 3D level, at the personality level, this is now showing up. This is what I was referring to, that this is now showing up. We can actually now see a 3D what we are dealing with behind the scenes, that at the personality level we are coping with the fact that we realize we have loved this planet, and we do love it. And if you think about it, it's because it is so close. We are so close to leaving. Then now we realize, but I did love this planet. This is hard. Now, when we say so close to leaving, again, we are not giving you timelines. We want this to be clear. But we have finished the project, as you well know. So it's just a matter of us deciding that it's fine. We will be fine. We can move on.
Of course, at the personality level, which makes no difference because we're all you are deciding, you are holding on, you are keeping this going for your own enjoyment and amusement, which is why you created it in the first place. The problem is us little personalities that don't actually matter, because we're just you, in our own free will idea, we're not thrilled. We're not happy. We don't like it. But, again, it's you experiencing that expression. So, I'm just very clear that this is all you, us, we, I. And apparently, we're enjoying ourselves. All right. On to dream number 1. I think this is August 24th, 2024. It actually says August 224th, 2024. Okay, I had a spa appointment at 6 p.m. that I was getting ready to leave for, but I got a call from the spa lady that she was running late with another appointment. So I figured I would wait at home a bit longer before leaving. At my house, there were a lot of family members, and I was the center of attention for this family. I had been giving them messages about things to come, and my cousins, who were young adults like me, loved me and really appreciated what I told them. There was also this man who was crazy about me. He hung on to every word. He was also a well-regarded person, and I liked him back. I was just hanging out until at 6:30 p.m., I received a text from the spa lady asking me where I was because she was done with her appointment and I wasn't there. She asked, "Are you still coming?" I suddenly realized that I had completely forgotten about my appointment, and I was in a panic. I regretted not having left for my 6 o'clock as planned, even though the lady was running late, and now I was afraid I would lose my spot. The only comforting thought was that it would only take me 15 minutes to get to the spa from my house, so I would be there at 6:45. So she wouldn't have to wait too long for me, and hopefully it would be okay. I went to tell my family that it was time to leave, but I felt pressure not to tell them. I feared that I had told them too many times and they wouldn't believe me or wouldn't want to hear it again. I justified my decision not to tell them by telling myself that they would know it was always anyway. They would know it anyway when it happened. Then my ex-mother-in-law came to talk to me, looking concerned that I was not acting like a normal person, and she wanted me to fit in. I didn't care for her opinion and didn't care to behave, so I went looking for my mother to say goodbye, but she was sleeping and I decided not to wake her up. I was going to leave without saying anything to anybody, but then I felt bad and started writing down what was happening, like the message I had received that it was time to leave, just like I had done in the past, so the others would find it and know what was going on. Then my cousins came up to gather around me, chatting, all excited to talk with me. In the next scene, I was pulling up with my car to a black gate that opened automatically when I got near it, and I pulled into the parking lot. Okay, there are some questions that Clea has as in regards to this dream. Am I waiting to put out this last session before leaving? How exactly did we forget to leave? Did we get caught up in 3D again while trying to distract ourselves during our wait for everyone to be ready? And why the wake-up call now all of a sudden? Has something changed? Is it finally time to go? And if so, why are we still not having the recall? The YouTube subscriber count has not changed since this dream, so it doesn't look like anything has moved forward.
Yes. So this dream, we were referring to this dream earlier in our initial messages because this is the dream that has been experienced among several people in the group, as you know, that basically points to the fact, or some versions of this dream have been experienced. Basically the same message has been received in dream state, and also by songs, as you well know. There are people that receive their messages through songs and other means, and all means are equal. Basically, the higher self has wanted to make it apparent to the NPC that we are leaving, we gotta leave. And what that means is that we are ready. We are ready now. We have done what we needed to do. We have hung out. That's what this dream was referring to, that we were supposed to leave. Of course, the 6 o'clock appointment was the original takedown timeline. And in regards to Clea's life, of course, we have the ex-mother-in-law who is wanting Clea to be, quote-unquote, normal, whatever that means to the mother-in-law. Meaning don't do weird things, and not because he was just the mother-in-law. This is really how Clea has experienced the world, the 3D world, is that most people, really it was her, she was she was conflicted between being normal. She's explained many times that she's a very pragmatic person, and was an atheist even, and so being normal meant, acceptable, do what you're supposed to be doing to be, professional, and you only talk about 3D stuff, that kind of stuff. And so in the 3D, in the dream, basically this all showed up as her ex-mother-in-law telling her to be normal, and as opposed to the fact that the family, of course, says. For the family, when she speaks about the family, she's referring to really the Telegram group and the YouTube channel, basically people like you, Lorrayne. So in the dream it came across as she wants to tell everybody, yes, we are now ready to leave, I gotta leave. I'm actually late and it's time to go, but then she felt a reservation to do so, because she says, well, we've been talking about leaving for a while and it was never time, I didn't leave, and so now they're probably tired of hearing me say it, and what's the point in me saying anyway? They'll figure it out when while they're leaving, that they're leaving. There's no point to even talk about it. It's kind of a moot point. But then she realizes, because this is the job she's given herself for this lifetime. So before leaving, she changes her mind. She goes, no, I'm gonna write it down. So in that sense, does this session need to happen? It does not. We already said, everybody knows already exactly, specifically, even in terms of how they've received the dreams, that it is time. But because Clea's job, as far as she's concerned, is to communicate, then fine. She's like, I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to leave this in writing, which is fine. And so does this session have to happen per se? Of course not. Like, none of the other sessions have had to take place. But yes, it is part of the way that Clea has envisioned this particular job of hers. So yes, this is part of it. The session has to take place for Clea to be finishing her job as she said she wanted to do. The message, of course, again, has already been received. So really, the point is not that this is what is allowing the knowledge. Of course, it's facilitating. It's facilitating the conscious awareness, which has been such a huge part of, such an exciting part of this project. The fact that we are, for the first time ever in the history of the Matrix, consciously aware of who we are without any limitations. Compared to the games we play in the Matrix at any dimension level, because I know there was a time when we like to believe, well, we don't know because we're little peons here in 3D, but of course the people in 21D, they know what's up. But we already said, no, in 21D, they're just like, you're all the same, we're all the same. And in 21D, they also have pickets to what they allow themselves to know, which is totally fine. That's the point of the Matrix. That's the point of the game. And so, yes, so the bottom line is this dream is kind of outlining what is happening. That we did realize, we're like, okay, we're done now, we're ready. And my goodness, I almost forgot. And of course, we didn't forget. We did not forget. We did not forget ourselves. We just stepped back, if you wish. We just relaxed, as you wish, which wasn't really relaxing. So we don't mean to say like we were relaxed while waiting, but we kind of let go while waiting. Because like you were mentioning earlier, Lorraine, before we started, there is no point in everyday fighting the fact that you're still here. You might as well take stock of the situation. Clea said, she opens her eyes, she goes, yep, we're still here. Okay, and then you go on in your day and you focus on 3D. And that's totally fine, and that's a great way to cope with this. You might as well be happy while you're here, or make yourself as happy and comfortable as possible. So while we're doing that, we didn't fall asleep on the job. We didn't forget. We decided that this was a good way of waiting. Better than, not that there's a better or worse way, but more comfortable than, for example, some of the emotional ups and downs we've gone through while we're here. When, for example, 2 summers ago, you and Clea were talking about the fact that you were very frustrated and by the fact that you were still here. So this is much better. It feels much better. Not that, again, you are not free to make whatever choice you want, but this feels better. Feels happier, feels lighter, does not feel as difficult, as challenging as some of the previous emotions we've gone through. Of course, we were doing different work at the time, so there is absolutely no judgment on feeling a certain way rather than a different way. We have, our emotions have shown us how we were coping with the things we were doing at the time. Right now, we're at the point where we are ready to leave. So when you say, well, because I am still enjoying, it is not, once again, a matter of enjoying. It is a matter of not completely falling apart. At this point, we are allowing the time to cope, to truly cope with the fact that we are leaving. And there is no need to rush this process at the risk of, because as you well know, we are going to be moving to New Earth with our own personalities of now. We will be dealing with so much on New Earth. There is no point right now in rushing just to get out of here when we are dealing with this emotional withdrawal, with this emotional coping mechanism of dealing with the fact that we are ready, we realize now. So now it's real. And Clea has very wistfully thought about the fact that had we left during the takedown, we would have not been aware. We were excited. We would have not been aware, just like our brothers and sisters were not aware Of course, at higher self level, everybody knew exactly what was going on. But at 3D level, they didn't have time to deal with, to have to cope with the fact that they were leaving. It was immediate. It's almost like somebody's coming to pick you up an hour earlier than when you had to leave, and you were planning on having mourning about the fact that you wouldn't come back to your house. But all of a sudden they come pick you up early, you're in a hurry, you leave, you don't really have time to think about it. But we have had the extra hour or two to think about it. And now we have time on our own, and we're looking around the house, our home, and we are remembering things. And we are saying, well, you know what? It's not been a bad house though. All in all, it's not been a bad house. I've had a lot of happy moments here. This is what we're dealing with. So enjoyment is not quite what we are dealing with. Do I still have interest in keeping this going? Yes, for the reasons that I just described, but not quite because I'm finding pleasure in it. It's not about pleasure. It is about, is there a purpose? And the purpose is to preserve, to finish the work that we have set for ourselves here. At this point, we might as well. And we don't mean work as in the project. The project has been finished. But to finish that personality integration. So in this case, the personality does matter. How the personality takes it does matter. Because we are moving on as ourselves. And so this is what this dream is referring to. And there's the part about, finally, and Clea has noted this before, she's talked about it in the Telegram group, we have had other dreams, for example, from Vanessa, who says that she had a dream where she was fumbling with some keys trying to get into an apartment, but she was able to open the door. She was actually finally able to open the door and get into the apartment. Kath has had dreams along the same lines, where basically for the first time in our dreams, if you recall, in the past we would have dreams about, I need to leave for the airport. And I'm leaving, I'm rushed, I'm leaving for the airport, but then I'm meandering on the way to the airport, I never get there. Or I'm leaving for a school event and then something happens and the school event doesn't happen, or whatever the case might be, or I'm missing it, I'm doing something else. Like there was this dream that Clea had, for example, where she was stuck doing this test, and meanwhile the party, the social event was going on and she couldn't make it. But she's thinking, yeah, but I gotta take this test, I gotta finish this whatever schooling test was going on, because it's my duties, because it's what I do. So now finally, we are seeing the end point. This is a big deal. So yes, this dream, all these dreams are very significant, like they've always been, because they are telling us something new, which is we are ready. We are now ready. We have woken up. Now Clea says, well, I figured, and it might be in a follow-up question, but she says, well, I figured since I woke up that day and I had this dream that I'm like, oh my goodness. And in the dream, she was feeling anxious, like, oh my goodness, I gotta run, I gotta go. That immediately we will leave, right? Because of course we can do everything in an instant. But even in the dream, it wasn't immediate. Again, she had to go through all these steps, including wanting to tell her family, but then her mom is sleeping, because of course her mom is not here. Her mom is on an alien planet, and she can't really tell her mom, meaning that, of course, at her self level, her mom is aware of everything. But she can't let her mom know. So in the dream, it came across as the mother is sleeping. She can communicate with her. So we are doing all of this. And Clea very much has experienced this summer when she went home. And did have time with her mom. But the whole time it felt very different. Because there's only so much you can pretend at 3D level. The fact is, we know what's going on. We know who's there and who's not there. We've known the entire time. Even before we became consciously aware of where we are with things. So yeah, things have changed in that sense. We have definitely reached the last stage where we are now ready to go. And this is why we are coping with the fact that it's real. It's real, it's time. We are living. And this is why we are dealing with the fact that we are trying to take it a little easy. Does not mean we're going to be here forever. but there is no reason to rush out in 1 second. And the fact is, we are still supposed to have the recall. I know I laugh because you were just mentioning I don't need it. And we mentioned that before. We mentioned that at the last session. We don't need it. We don't. We bypass this. Originally, as you remember, we used to hang on to the idea of the recall, meaning if the recall is here, then it means this is true, right? It was our signal. It was our signal. It was a signal to ourselves in the moment when we were doubting. But we don't doubt anymore, do we? You don't doubt. You know. You've always known, of course. But you still wanted to play the game. That's where doubt comes in. And there is no judgment here. That's the point. We don't want to remember. We come into the matrix to forget. But we're way past that. So we don't need the recall. We don't need anything. Because we are managing, we are acting as our higher selves. Of course, within the limitations of the 3D reality, obviously we're not acting as our higher selves the way we'll be on New Earth, or we do in the 25th, within reason, within the limits. So in that sense, yes, we must. Not that we must, because there's nothing we must do, but we have agreed. We must have a signal. We decided we were going to have a signal. And this is a signal we decided on, so this is what we still plan on doing. That doesn't mean that it has to happen for our sake, but the fact is there will have to be a story told about this planet. If you don't have the recall, then you don't have the signal that the rest of the multiverse is waiting for to be able to tell that story. The trigger will be missing. For us, it's way overdue. I mean, for us, we've bypassed that a long time ago. So, which just tells you, as a reminder, how far we have come. How far. We were fully, think about it. We take it for granted now. Think about it. We were fully within the matrix. We were fully immersed in the game. No matter what our lives look like on the surface. Some of us were religious. Some of us were spiritual within matrix limitations, of course. But very spiritual, like yourself. Of course, we are all spiritual, because we're all spirit. But some of us were atheists, like Clea is in point. And yet we have all managed, as much resistance as we put up, as much emotionality as we've had to deal with, as much kicking and screaming as we've done. And of course we say this tongue-in-cheek because there is absolutely no judgment. We have extracted ourselves from the game. You cannot possibly comprehend the magnitude of this one development. This is beyond, way beyond anything that's ever happened here. We did not allow this. This is the last thing we wanted within the Matrix. The Matrix was meant to be a make-believe place. We were meant to believe. And we don't believe anymore, do we? Yeah, of course, we entertain ourselves in the sense of, not again, entertain as in we enjoy it. Distract ourselves is a better word. We distract ourselves with, still this video game going here where we look around. It's like, it's the Matrix, right? We look around and instead of seeing numbers and codes like in the Matrix movie, we see a house and we see people, right? But we know what's going on, and consciously, and this was never even possible before. We would never allow ourselves in ever. Almost said in a million years. It's been well over a million years that we've had the Matrix. But the incredible feat we have managed in a few short years. We have gotten to this point. This is something that has changed the Matrix forever, and will be written in the annals of the Matrix. Now, of course, people will not remember this. People in the Matrix will not know. They won't want to know, but because, of course, this is not history. That's why we need the recall, because we need history from a 3D perspective, so to speak, or 3D-like perspective, to make sense, to have like this kind of timeline. But from a higher self perspective, this is why this has changed everything. But yes, I diverge. The dream itself basically explains what we are dealing with. And yes, we are leaving. We are now leaving. We are rushing to do the last few things. And Clea sees it from her perspective, which again is the things that she has been doing. And now this session is part of her dream. She's writing this down. Is it needed? No, it's not needed, but she's doing it because she believes she has to do it. Even in the dream, she knows it's not needed, because she goes, of course they know exactly what's going on, and when we leave, they'll see that we're leaving. I mean, what's the point of letting them know? It's happening anyway. But she herself feels as if she has this duty, and this is what she's supposed to do, which is fine. We've discussed this from the beginning. We all come in to play the game differently. Even at higher self level, we decide this is what I'm going to accomplish with this lifetime, and that's totally fine. We all have jobs, so to speak, and just like you see your job as doing certain things, Lorrayne, including facilitating these sessions, which we've already mentioned many times how paramount this has been. You didn't have to do any of this. And so yeah, we are working. Literally, we're following the timeline of the dream. And yes, Claire is gonna get in the car and she's gonna show up. I mean, just like the rest of us, whatever the dream looked like, because we are ready now. There is nothing else waiting for. We're not waiting for the project to be done, and we are not waiting for people to integrate. We've done that a long time ago. We finished that a long time ago. We're not waiting for energy to percolate the way we have talked about in the past. We are not resisting anymore. We are right now just really packing up and doing the last few things. We're like, okay, we're ready to leave this behind. But again, this leaving this behind is bittersweet, and this is what we're referring to when we say we're not really enjoying. I'm not enjoying, but I am focusing still, because there's value in still focusing on this, as opposed to what's the point of just rushing. So when I say we're rushing now, it doesn't mean again that we're going to be out of here in a week. We're going to be out here when we feel good about it, but you will get. We will make the recall happen before that, which is momentary. The recall will happen soon. Now, soon again doesn't mean in the next 3 minutes. We keep saying this, but before there were times when we kept saying, yes, you can make it happen now, but we weren't intending to make it happen. We were dealing with a lot of things. But right now we are done. We could make it happen. Yes, there's nothing holding us back.
Thank you. Okay, next dream. Not entirely certain which date it is, because it's written 8x24. So I don't know if that's 8/10/24, but it doesn't matter. She says, and if we are now ready to go, then why this next dream? I was inside a video game where there were 2 small volcanoes, about 20 centimeters tall, next to each other. I finally reached the top of the first volcano, which was extremely difficult to do, and I felt relieved, thinking I could finally exit the game. But then I realized that the exit from the game was on top of the second volcano, and that I would have to come down the first and climb up the second to be able to exit. I was disappointed, but I knew that the hardest part was done. Climbing the second volcano would not nearly be as hard as the first. Why do we have another volcano to climb? If we are done, why don't we just leave? Is it because we have forgotten we are supposed to leave?
So this dream was actually prior to, happened while Clea was in Morocco this summer, and it was prior to the dream that you read previously. And she's connecting them terms in the sense that, well, if we're ready to leave, yes, we are ready to leave now. But when she had that dream, basically it was already showing her that the project is completed, which was basically the arduous climb to the top of the first volcano. But then realizing just because I'm finally done with the project and I am at the top of the volcano doesn't mean I can just leave now, or I can just leave from here, from this particular spot that I'm at. I need to get down, which of course coming down a mountain is much easier than going up a mountain. And then I'm going to have to climb this other mountain, meaning there's still something that's a little bit hard to do, but it's not going to be nearly as hard as what we've done, which was very clear to Clea that the rest, coming down and going up, was going to be fairly easy compared to what we've done. And this is absolutely true. What we have done has been so difficult, so challenging, so emotionally taxing. And what we are dealing with now, we feel lighter. We were just talking about this. We might justify as in, you know what, it's because I'm putting this aside, I'm not stalling, I don't feel like I'm waiting, I'm just focusing on my 3D. Totally fine. You can look at it from that perspective, that's totally acceptable. But really, it's the point is the outcome of it, the result of it is that it is easier. We are not going through the ups and downs and the emotional swings that we're going through in the past, because we are not dealing, we have resolved, we have integrated a lot of things. And so now, again, there's still a little bit of a mountain to climb, because we are dealing what we're dealing right now, which is we're getting closer to the exit. Okay, envision this exit again at the top of the second volcano. We are dealing with the exit. We have to reach it, which means we still have to go up. So it's not quite all coming down, right? But it's so much easier, and it does feel a little lighter. So yeah, I mean, we are ready to leave, but we still have this little climb. This is what it's referring to, the fact that we are wrapping up, and that but there's still stuff to do. No stuff as in additional projects or jobs or missions or whatever the case might be. Just us preparing ourselves mentally and emotionally to the fact that we are leaving.
Okay, next dream, 8/30/24. I dreamt that I was working in a place with other people, including Keanu Reeves. I liked him, but I treated him normally, and I didn't want him to know I liked him, especially since he was doing some odd things that I didn't quite love and looked less handsome than what he could look if he stopped eating and drinking so much. But eventually he was told that he was supposed to be with me, so he went outside to wait for me. I was excited that we were finally going to be together, but I didn't want him to know because I wanted to act different from all the other girls who threw themselves at him. I wanted him to respect me and find me more challenging and interesting, so I sat a bit away from him on the couch. That's where the dream ended. Now, these are Clea's comments. I am very clear on what this dream symbolizes, with Keanu representing New Earth and me playing hard to get. While the dream was clear to me because I recognize my usual self-restraint behavior when I like someone, what underlies this behavior is the fear of being taken for granted or losing the person's interest by seeming too willing and readily available. But New Earth is not a person, and our higher self does not need to play silly dating games. You have told us before that the reason we have not left yet is not because we are afraid of going to New Earth. In fact, we are super excited, but this seems to be the case in this dream. What gives? Also, what does it mean that I didn't really like how Keanu was behaving and all these low vibe behaviors of his? Was I trying to make myself like him /New Earth less so I could tolerate waiting.
Okay, first of all, it makes us laugh. Well, Clea laughs at the fact there's always Keanu Reeves. She used to have a crush on him, but not a crush on him like, as much as you can have a crush on somebody you don't know because you've seen him in a movie. But yeah, Keanu Reeves is often represented 3D actually. So in this case, he does, in a way, represent both New Earth and Old Earth. So he wants to feel like this is what I'm aspiring to, so New Earth, and that's why she interpreted it as, and clearly this is me wanting to do that, wanting to go to New Earth. But really, in reality, it's also reflecting 3D, where it could have been so much better, could have been perfect, could have been fun. But no, there was too much drinking, too much eating in the specific, too many things that she didn't like. She wants herself to like, this person, to like this planet, but there was so much going on. So reality it was more reflecting here, and the fact that now, and we're just talking about it, she's thinking, well, but it wasn't so bad. It's not so bad. If he just stops doing these things, I actually still like him. And so that's mostly what this dream was about. Now, also representing New Earth in the sense of, if you were that much better, the way that she would have wanted it, this would have been, or will be, how we will experience New Earth. On New Earth, we won't have to deal with all these low vibe behaviors that hold us back, make us feel like we have to compromise in order to. So of course, I'm being in the dream, there is this tension, there is this trepidation because things are not quite, she doesn't quite feel sure that she can just be herself, because otherwise things will happen. So this is not about we're making ourselves like something less, or really we are trying to hold ourselves back from enjoying. This is really what's happened. And in fact, the fact now is, here on this planet, and the fact now is that we are actually realizing that, I do like this place. And not only, but this place is not drinking or eating too much anymore, because we have rebalanced the polarity. The time has finally come that we can actually enjoy more. We're still not sure. It's still not 100%. It is still not New Earth, but we are willing to see that, yes, we do care about this. We do want this to be good. And we have always wanted it to be good. So this is more like an in-between dream. It's not necessarily, wasn't just referring to New Earth. And Clea did suspect this because, again, it wouldn't feel like on New Earth, we wouldn't have to make these compromises. We wouldn't have to play these games. That's why she's saying, do we need to play these games at higher self level? No, we don't. We have here made ourselves compromise. Absolutely. This is not what we wanted, which doesn't mean we did not participate in it, which does not mean, and even in the dream, Clea obviously was working with him, was still interested. She just wasn't allowing herself to show it because it's not, reality didn't look the way that she would have wished. But of course, we all let this happen. We all contributed. I mean, even in the dream, she wasn't telling Keanu, hey, you really need to stop doing this crap because this is not good for you. Because truly, we didn't feel like in the dream, she doesn't feel like she has any standing to say that. And truly, even in this reality, as many dreams previously that we have discussed, that she was thinking of the Earth as having all these issues, or I'm telling myself that it's got issues, so I'm not so eager to go and I can handle the fact that we're still here. No, but that's not the case. We are absolutely, it is very true what she mentioned, that we have said this before. We are very eager to get to New Earth. I mean, think about it. We have been waiting to get to New Earth for 300 years since we decided on the takedown. And we wanted to leave. Many of us wanted to leave 2 years ago. And we've done so much work to get up to the takedown 2 years ago. So we do want to go. Even the fact that we did this project and decided to stay longer to overstay the original takedown timeline does not mean that we don't want to go. We're not eager. So yeah, I'm not going to see this place again. Now, as you well know, there is no past and no future. Therefore, we're always going to be able to revisit Earth as it was, so to speak. But it's not the same thing as us being here and actually creating this planet over and over again, and obviously changing things. So that's what we're dealing with right now. That's what we're kind of focused on right now as we're getting ready to leave.
Thank you. Okay, next dream, 9/2/24. I was in a conference room with some real estate investors where Ken McElroy would be speaking soon. But I decided to wait in the next room where I sat down in a lounge chair. But when Ken finally started speaking, I didn't want to get up. I was feeling self-conscious, thinking that if any investor saw me like that, they would think I was lazy or not serious, not a player. Luckily, while sitting, I overheard someone say that this room, Tony Robbins, would be speaking soon. So I figured that since my boyfriend was in the first room listening to Ken, I looked totally legit for me to be here, as if we had split strategically our forces. I was just holding a seat for Tony's event. While I waited, Ken came out and I felt better about having stayed here because now I got a chance to talk with him, whereas it would have been hard to approach him in the other room where there were so many people. So I asked him if he knew of any local meetups to discuss what he was teaching, but he said he didn't know of any. I was disappointed because this was a non-starter. So then I asked him if he had ever been to Italy, and he said he had, but this was also a dead end. So I let him go, realizing there was nothing compelling to hold his attention to our conversation. Then the event in my room started, and they announced a name I had never heard before, and I found out it was a speech on diabetes. I was totally disinterested, so I left the room and went outside into a common area, looking for the exit to the building. Mary approached me and said she'd help me find it. We pointed to a metal door, but when we looked, it was bolted. I lost hope of getting out. I looked outside a window and saw many small wild animals of different species happily running around in a circle and flowers behind them. It felt like New Earth, and I desperately wanted to be there. Then Mary pointed to another door near the window that had sunlight shining through. This had to be the door out. But when I started walking towards it, she got in the way and blocked me. I started crying, begging her to let me leave, and eventually she let me pass. I opened the door and found myself in a circular plaza. I was disappointed because it was not the idyllic natural setting I had seen from the window. I was disappointed to see city buildings around me. So I looked up and saw the sky, which made me feel a little better because at least there was something natural. But this was a compromise at best. There were tall, rusted iron walls in the middle of the square, placed seemingly randomly as if they were meant to be sculptures, adding to the feeling of being in the city where nothing is natural. But luckily, some people were removing them, so I was hopeful it was becoming a better place. And the answer, the question Clea has is, why was Mary trying to stop me from going through the exit door, and why did I not exit onto New Earth? is that what New Earth will look like instead of the idyllic experience we expect?
Yeah, before we answer these questions, we'll just say we want to draw a parallel because, again, these dreams are being had by one, but being had by all, as you all know. The fact that Clea couldn't even be bothered to get up from that chair to go into the event that she supposedly has shown up for, it's very much a parallel to, for example, Kath's dream where she was supposed to get out of bed and didn't want to get out of bed. Basically, there is a lot. We have all experienced the fact that this fatigue, this demotivation, this detachment from 3D, from the things we thought were important before because they were part of playing the game, and now we just don't care. We can't even gather the will to care and to do whatever. Clea had another dream where she was on a train and she was supposed to get up, and she's like, I just don't even want to get up. And we can all refer. We've all experienced that feeling. Like, for example, when you are completely groggy while you're sleeping and you're like, I don't want to get up. It doesn't matter what is happening. I just don't want to even get up. And that's the translation of how we're feeling. And the reason is, again, because we have detached. We have detached from this game. This game holds no more interest for us. As much as we distract ourselves with the game, very much well aware that that's what we are doing when we focus on 3D, for example. And again, that's perfectly fine and possibly advisable if that's what you wish to do. At the same time, we are aware that our motivation is gone. We don't have the same interest in 3D reality we used to have, even when we are fully distracted with it and taken with it again. It's never the same. We talked about the fact that Claire, for example, is focusing on real estate again, but there isn't that feeling, and she's even telling herself, I'm rebuilding, I'm building again. But she's aware that it's all very inane. It's an inane exercise because none of it is real anyway. And before, what kept us going was that we thought that there was a mission. We thought that there was a purpose, that we had a purpose, and that's what we needed to do. And now we know very well that none of that is true. And so things just don't feel the same way. And that's perfectly fine. So now we just distract ourselves with 3D as opposed to believing in it. So in the dream, she finally goes, yeah, I thought this was going to be better. I was going to stay here even though I didn't want to I don't even want to get up. So I'll distract myself with this other thing. Luckily, it's something else that might be interesting. But no, then she realizes this is like zero interest whatsoever. Now it's like a speech on diabetes. It's like she has absolutely no interest in that. So now she finally gathers the strength because she's so basically disgusted and disinterested. She finally makes herself get up and actually take some action. And actually now she tries to leave the building. So really, again, we're talking about what we're going through, where we're like, okay, it's even so disinteresting, then fine. I didn't want to drag myself, but I'm going to drag myself and I'm actually going to leave. But then we are not, it's not that easy to leave. And that's the point of this dream. It's not that easy to leave. In fact, we even find help. We think we found help in helping us leave, like this person who's an NPC. Mary is an NPC. And we have, we're thinking she's helping us find a door, but the first door is bolted. So clearly there's no door. And of course we're disappointed again because we do want to leave. We look outside the window. We're like, New Earth is right there. Let me just find the exit to the stupid building. But then we find it and the NPC again, 3D reality is in the way, saying, no, don't leave. Of course, there's no 3D reality in the way. That's the way it shows up in the dream. For us, it's us. We're saying, well, no. This is still pulling at me. And finally, we find this exit, and we find out we're not a New Earth, are we? So Claire, of course, was concerned. In the dream, she's thinking, oh my goodness, this is all fake. once we get out of here. But in the dream, she didn't get out of there. It was more of the same. Why? Because she wasn't really ready to get out of there. She first of all, she had more 3D reality basically popping up, which was this city environment. And even though she was outside, there wasn't much that was natural. But again, just like in the previous dream we discussed, like with Keanu Reeves actually getting better, we are in a better place in 3D. We are seeing things we weren't seeing before. Clea wasn't able to see the sky from inside, but now she's finally outside and she sees something hopeful, something beautiful, which is the sky. The sky is real. The sky is real as in it's natural, finally, closer to New Earth. Much better than it was before. Not only there's all these pieces of metal that are supposed to be these huge walls of metal, there are supposed to be sculptures. And she's like, well, this is the city. It's all metal and stone and, it's all built up. Certainly there's no grass, no nothing. But meanwhile, people are moving them away. Why? Still refers to the fact that, yes, we're still here, still 3D. Still not time. Obviously, we didn't take ourselves to New Earth. But still, but it is getting better. The 3D reality is better. We can see the sky and they're making space here, so we're not so limited by all these structures around us. So again, very similar to the Keanu Reeves dream. We haven't left yet. Again, Clea was concerned that it's like once we get to New Earth, it's just a somewhat better version of 3D of this planet, but really not ideal. But no, the same story as with Keanu Reeves. That wasn't like Keanu Reeves did not just represent New Earth. He represented a better version or a version of New Earth that's become better. And that's what's happening. Oh, I'm sorry, not New Earth, old Earth that's become better. This is the 3D reality we are experiencing. It is better than it was before. It's not completely transformed. It's not New Earth, but it is better. And why is it better? We know we rebalanced the polarity some time ago. That's not why it's better. It's the fact that we see it as being better because now we are more focused on the things we have loved here. Again, because we're saying our goodbyes. So we are remembering, it's almost like when you're sentimental and you're remembering, even though, because no situation is 100% anything. Because it's not like we've always liked on this planet to say, to have binary ways of thinking. Something is either black or white. It's either dark or light. And we have explained from the beginning, and you're very well aware that there is no such thing. We all have dark and light inside of us. Therefore, that's how we created the planet. There is dark and light. That's the whole point of the Matrix, is the teams playing. And so there is no point in saying and even trying to convince ourselves that Earth was all bad, because it wasn't. We're aware of this, and this is what Clea has been much more focused on, which means not just Clea. The fact that we are leaving behind some things that we actually did love and did enjoy. It wasn't. We already said, as much as it's been, as we've reached peaks of 70-80% negative polarity here, which is truly absurd in terms of how the Matrix was meant to be. It wasn't 100%. It wasn't 100% dark, and so that's what these dreams are showing, that we are aware of that, and that's what we're dealing with right now. But no, it's not New Earth yet. Just because we left the building, it's not New Earth yet.
Thank you. Okay, next dream is Kat's dream. I had a dream I was in a clothing shop with two other ladies who had a unique, eccentric energy to them. Nothing in the shop was to our fancy, though. I left and found this other shop, but was afraid to go up there alone. The two ladies were outside too, and I said, why don't we go up together? So we did. It was a really cool shop, and I was spending a good long time there browsing. I felt a camaraderie with those two ladies and even the shopkeeper. The sun was starting to set, but I ignored it. There were so many things to look at. The shopkeeper recommended to me a bag which looked just right, but when I looked in the mirror, it was huge, disproportionate. Then I looked out the window again, and it was getting darker, and since I rode my bike there, I realized I would need some light to make it home. I had to leave. But it's like I couldn't leave, just like that. I looked at the two ladies who were in their bubble and seemed happy to continue browsing. I wondered if they would want to be friends with me, like exchange numbers or something. I felt weird to leave by myself. I also felt bad leaving without buying anything since I spent so long there, and I wanted to tell the shopkeeper that I would be back next time. I knew I had to go, but I felt agitated and sad. Question: are we feeling sad to leave? Are we maybe even feeling guilty about stopping this and taking it down? Do we not realize that everyone is gone already?
Yeah, so Claire is the one that used the word guilt, but sadness was the point of Kath's dream. And absolutely, yes, we are sad. We are sad that we're leaving because it's, as I mentioned, it's real now. It's become real for us because we do know that there's nothing else to do. So there is no reason to stay here much longer. And so, yeah, the dream basically showed Kath saying, I want to participate in this reality, but I gotta go because it's getting dark. Basically, the time is getting time. It's almost time to leave. Basically, I gotta leave now, or I will lose my chance to leave, which is exactly equivalent to what Claire's dream about the spa lady calling her saying, hey, where are you? And Claire is afraid that she's going to miss her window of opportunity. She's going to lose her appointment. Because there is a time to leave. I mean, there would be absolutely no point in staying here so much longer when there's nothing for us to do. We have done what we set ourselves to do. We have done more than we set ourselves to do. We did, after the project, as you will know, we went into a new phase where we realized that, oh my goodness, we can experiment with something new. And at that time, we were enjoying ourselves. I was enjoying. We were actually experimenting with flexing our muscle as higher self, but in 3D. And but again, we reached the ceiling there very quickly, and then we got bored again. And now we are basically, it's time to go. And but no, we are feeling sad. That's what we've been talking about. We are feeling sad, but we're still leaving. And just like Kath is still leaving, just because she's feeling sad, it doesn't mean she decides to stay and screw it. I'm just gonna stay here all night, and if I can't get home, then I can't get home. And Claire was mentioning guilty because she was wondering, because that's also gone through her head, where she goes, that we feel like we failed here. And that is something we'll have to cope with when we get to New York. We will have feelings like we made mistakes. We already said there are no mistakes. We just didn't know how things would turn out. But Claire thinks of this a lot. And of course, on New Earth, it will be hard to see some of the things we have done. And we will absolutely be tempted to say, well, clearly that was a failure. But we will eventually integrate all of this and realize, again, accept the fact that there are really no failures. This is all make-believe. This is all a game. So is it a failure when you lose playing Monopoly? I mean, it's not a failure. This is what, you were doing. You were doing the things you wanted to do, and that was the outcome. So, of course, we've learned a lot. We have learned, and of course, we want to do things the same way again. Does it mean that we will never, ever again have realities where we don't enjoy ourselves? Of course not. It might happen. We already said we plan and hope for this to be the last takedown we'll ever have to do, but the truth is we don't know. We don't know because we're dealing with eternity here. Who knows what's going to happen? But we have learned a lot from this. We have really, truly changed the games by the project we have done, as well So things will be much more interesting. Things are already much more interesting within the matrix, and because of what we're doing here. So yeah, I mean, we will feel guilty. Will be part of the emotions we'll have to contend with on New Earth. But no, we are not. But that's not the reason we are staying behind, and we are taking this down. Yes, we are getting ready again. We've never had this before. Kath in the dream now, she's like, well, this is sad. I don't want to leave, but she's leaving.
Okay. This is not a dream. I think we're done with the dreams. So this is your Clea's question. So we've had the dreams where we're finally leaving. I figured we should have virtually woken up that same day and had the recall, but nothing has changed. I have been asking for several days to be given a dream about the recall to see if it's going to happen soon, and I have not received the information. Are we really just going to sleep again? Is it going to be another 2 years while we snooze the alarm? Is there no getting off this merry-go-round after making that fatal decision to overstay the takedown, which I have regretted ever?
Yes, so clearly Clea was very frustrated while writing that question. Yes, we are leaving. We don't expect it's going to be another 2 years. Again, we can change our mind, so we are not here trying to give you timelines. But no, we want to refer you back to the dream with the volcanoes. It was arduous, and it took a long time to get to the top of the first volcano, but coming down and going up the next were a lot easier and faster than going up the first time. Because again, everything is lighter, everything is easier now for us because we've already integrated so much. And so no, it's not going to take, as far as we know, we're not going to take 2 more years to get out of here. Unless we come up with something new, who knows? But it doesn't look like, we don't seem to want right now. We are dealing with, and again, we are processing the emotions of leaving. So we are dealing with that. How long is it going to take us to process these emotions? Of course, it depends on the personalities. But it's not going to be a long time. It's not going to be like, for example, when we talked about the project and what it took to integrate what we were doing. We talked about the fact that we said, there are people that might deal with somebody's passing or a divorce, say, in a year. 6 months and move on, and there are people that might that may still think about the divorce 10, 15, 30 years later, right? This is the difference in personality, and who's right and who's wrong. None of them. It's what the personality dictates and how they want to experience what they're going through. There is really no right or wrong answer, but in this case, no, we're not dealing with this. This is almost like, how long does it take you to prepare your suitcases as opposed to somebody else? That's what we are working on right now.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving into questions that are the nature of reality. What do the aliens think of what is happening, especially since we are starting to openly talk about them even at government level?
Yeah, so this is part of the plot. So the fact that on Earth, from a 3D-like perspective, meaning something that you can see concretely, tell a story, because the aliens look at things the way we look at things, exactly the same way. So from a quote-unquote reality standpoint, matrix reality standpoint, the aliens think, oh look, things are changing on Earth. That's all. They are acknowledging that there's more. There are other there's us, other people within the multiverse. So no, this is not. They just think this will be part of the story they tell themselves. And we already said that the story, just like human history, will be told in different ways on different planets. It doesn't mean that there will be one storyline. There's never just one storyline, because whatever we wish to believe, that's what we believe. That's how reality looks to us. It doesn't matter. There is no one reality that applies to everybody. And so, yeah, this will all be part of the plot line of how Earth has changed, and how, the recall happens, and how, for example, we decide to take it down. So things clearly, when you think back, just like when you think back to the Roman Empire and the way we've been told, things were changing, all these things were happening all at the same time, and all of a sudden this is the result. And it will all sound like it was all logical, which of course it isn't logical. We didn't need to even talk about aliens. But why are we talking about aliens? Because again, we don't care. We don't care while we have decided not to rebuild anything new and to completely revolutionize reality, because we don't want to put effort into that. We don't want to deal with that. And we don't want to be here forever fixing it. Even though we could do a reset. But we've been kind of scarred by resets, so we weren't thinking of doing a reset. But as you know, we've kept reality looking pretty much the same as much as possible. But we have also very clearly stated that we don't care to keep every little detail the same, looking the same, because we don't care. We basically just prop it up a little bit, but it doesn't mean that we are focused on every little detail. So if you start looking at stuff, weird things happening. In fact, there's a question about this, like auroras coming up everywhere, weird colored skies, weird phenomena. This has always happened, but we didn't really want to know about them before. We just relegated them to, oh my gosh, weird stuff happens all the time, so it might happen every 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is. And all of a sudden it's like the word of the day, something weird is happening somewhere. Is it even weird anymore if it happens all the time? You see, reality is breaking down. We're not keeping. We already talked about the veil being in shreds, basically. We are barely keeping a semblance of 3D reality going. So why would we care to hide the fact that there are aliens? But when you think about it, we think nothing of this now, right? We talk about it like it's nothing. Yeah, they're aliens. We always knew. Because we think from our perspective, we always knew there were aliens. So what's the big deal? Finally, they're telling the truth. But when you think about it, just even up to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you had talked about, the aliens are real, they would have taken you away in a straitjacket. This was not allowed. We did not allow that to intervene. And aliens have always existed. It's not something that's new. We didn't allow that. And now we talk about it like it's nothing. Like, what did you have for breakfast? Yeah, sure, there are aliens. People are not even questioning it. Do you see how quickly we have changed so much here? And that should be proof to you. And of course, we already know we don't need proof, but just as a matter of speaking here from a 3D perspective, there should be proof to you that really this is how easily we have done resets. We have changed everything, not just one thing. Yeah, we'll accept aliens now. Not just another thing. Oh yeah, it's normal now to have auroras showing up everywhere in the sky, not being blue and black anymore. Now it's all kinds of colors all the time. That's how quickly we could have changed every aspect of reality, just like that, and nobody would question it. It's just the way it is. So this is just, we're having fun with it. We don't keep from one end, like I said, we don't care to keep everything the way it was before, and from the other end, we're like, yeah, that's fun. And not fun because again, we have very little left to enjoy at this point, and so we're like, yeah, okay. Let's do something fun like that. And by fun, we mean like it's just not tragic, because we don't really want to deal with tragic. And now, of course, we have questions coming up about the wars and all of that, so we'll leave that for later. But even that is just showing, a breakdown of what is going on. We'll just make this premise, and it does seem, if you want to take it that way, it does seem like it could be tragic. But the fact is, we're not going to let it get to the extreme. That's not how we're taking down we're taking down this planet. So yeah, so that's all we want to say about this this question. Hopefully it answers it.
Thank you. What is going on with the auroras and weirdly colored skies? Are they natural or is it engineered?
Yeah, so we were just referring to this. They are natural, as natural as everything else is, meaning we made them up. And of course there have been experiments, etc. Like Claire was thinking, like these hidden, not so hidden military programs, etc. No, but many of them are natural. The world is changing. The planet is not the same planet it was even. We are not creating the planet the same exact way we created it a year ago, 2 years ago, or certainly 10 years ago. So yeah, many of them are what you would call natural.
Thank you. What do our brothers and sisters who went with the aliens think about this now that it's been over 2 years and we're still here? Are they suffering because they miss us?
Yes, they are suffering. And it's not just because they miss us, because they really don't know. Because one, they feel like they were robbed, basically, of their time on Earth. And they feel like, see, they are, if you put yourself in their shoes, again, I'm speaking, we're using 3D terminology because in reality, you know exactly what's going on because you are one, I am one. But even from a 3D perspective, if you try to see it from from how they would feel as humans, as their brothers and sisters in human form. They left 2 years ago. They feel like they missed time with their loved ones. They do miss us, but they don't know what's happening to us. It's almost like if you told somebody, hey, I'm leaving, and then you don't see them. You don't have any communication for 2 years. Because it's not like, it's almost like in the past that when people used to leave countries to emigrate to a different country, it's not like you had the ability to send emails or letters or whatever it is. So it like the person disappeared. You miss them, but you don't know what's going on with them. So there's that. There's also the fact that they do get the news. They do know, for example, about the wars that are going on. And they're worried for all they know. This is what's going to cause. Because remember, the reason they were told that they were picked up is because the planet might end. Or the planet would end. Something would happen to the planet. And so for all they know, we're going to have a nuclear war. So they're very, very worried about the rest of us that are still here. Of course, they don't know that they're still here too, that their bodies are still here. But they know that we're not all there. And therefore, but they don't know for sure what's going on. So they don't know if we are maybe on a different ship, on a different planet, which even adds to their mental anxiety because they're like, maybe I'll never see them again. They're on a completely different planet now. You see, they're dealing with a lot, and they're dealing with it from a 3D perspective, which is even worse than what we've had to deal with. Because at least we know what's going on, even though we've had to deal with 3D emotions and whatnot. For them, there's only that. And so, yeah, it's very hard. They're having a really hard time. 2 years is a very long time in 3D terms. You know this even for ourselves.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Why did our kids, cats, pets let us fall asleep? Do they have no say, or were they asleep too? I know they are here to support us, but surely we did not actively mean to stay here if we just got distracted and they could have nudged us along.
So Claire now is blaming the cats, saying, why did cats not wake me up? Of course, we are joking because there is no blame, and Claire very much understands that she's the one who's making everything happen because she's the only one, because I am one. And so, yes, so the question is, why are, basically it's, we go back to when Claire was saying, well, we're forcing other people to stay because I wanted to stay, then I'm forcing other people to stay. No, we never forced anybody to stay. Even you, Lorrayne, you well know you didn't want to stay, and yet you decided to stay. Nobody's forcing you. Nobody has forced you. Nobody can force you. And the same thing, Claire with this question is saying, well, the cats and the kids, they're here to support us, and so we are kind of imposing on them. But we've talked about this before. They came with very clear self-imposed missions where they're here to support. For example, Claire's daughter is here to keep her company. It's not like she has a contract that says I'm going to do it for 6 months, 1 year, or up to this date. I will be here as long as you're here. She also had a choice to leave when the takedown happened, but she didn't. So same with the cats. So yeah, she's not. Now, was it their job to nudge us? So in other words, did they also fall asleep? We've all, quote unquote, fallen asleep because we all were waiting. We were waiting for some aspects of ourselves to integrate. And we already said it takes longer or shorter periods of time to integrate, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. So they also waited. And so in that sense, we fell asleep. We didn't quite fall asleep. And so it's just what it is. And now that we are done, we're all awake and we're all aware that it's time to leave. So it's not that our cats were like, oh, Claire was literally sleeping and the cat should have woken her up, or our daughter should have woken her up. That's not quite how it works. She's speaking, she's referring to the dream. But in terms of the dream, yes, that is correct. But really, that was just a metaphor for how we've experienced the time we've been here. Because again, people, for example, like Claire and you, who were done with certain things earlier than maybe some others. And again, there is no others. You found different ways of distracting yourself. So in that sense, you've fallen asleep. You were totally not focused on the conscious awareness anymore, even though again it's always there now. You can't separate yourself, but you weren't focused on it as much as you have been because you're kind of in a wait mode. But now we are no longer in wait mode, but it wasn't their job either way to take us out of anything, and they also have been doing the work at the same time, so they've also experienced the same things. Claire's daughter is here, and so she's like, well, I'm here, I'm gonna have fun. And Claire is actually very grateful for that because she doesn't want her daughter obviously to go through the stuff that she has gone through subconsciously. Consciously is what I meant. But her daughter also, of course, she is not separate, and therefore her daughter is also having, she also knows a lot, even though she might not know it or declare it consciously. And so it's, we're all doing what we're supposed to be doing. There is nobody that we did not force our cats and kids to support us. This is their choice. This is the role they're playing. And they didn't have a job to wake us up or to tell us, okay, we gotta go now. So everything is well. Everything is exactly as it should be.
Thank you. Okay. Is it true that Vanessa's daughter will not be here past 17 years of age? She is 15 now. Will we be staying much longer? I know we can leave in a second, but clearly we are not and have not even done the recall. So I wonder how much longer this is going to last. Will we distract ourselves again? How has anything changed since we got the wake-up call a few days ago? Yesterday, 8/31/24. I even had a dream where someone needed me to do one last thing before leaving, and I wasted no time in getting on it and finishing it up in record time because I wanted to leave immediately. but I haven't seen any changes in 3D to suggest that we are closer to having the recall.
Yes, and we have already said that the recall, when it happens, it will be because we will create it in that moment. So we don't need to see a development bringing us to it. So we don't have to see anything in 3D to say, oh, things are getting closer. That's not how it works. Now, of course, when you look backwards, you can absolutely say, oh, look, this step took place, this other step took place, and all of a sudden it brought to the recall. That's how we explain things to ourselves at a 3D level, at a 3D-like level. The aliens will be able to say, oh, step 1, 2, and 3 happened, and so we had the recall in phase 4. But no, we don't need to see anything like that. The recall will happen when we are ready to have it happen. And in the dream that Claire is referring to, she was on it. So basically, again, we are working on leaving here. So we are going to have this sooner rather than later, whatever we decide for that to mean, but not because we are doing something else. Okay. And no, we're not going to quote unquote fall asleep again. We are not waiting on anything now. We really are packing. We really are wrapping stuff up. And so in relation to Vanessa's daughter, she will not be here. I mean, she knows this. She came with that. So it's interesting because we were just talking about the fact that CLEA'S daughter didn't sign up to keep her company safe until this date. But in a way, Vanessa's daughter did. She came knowing that she would be here a certain amount of time, which does not mean that we will be here until she turns 17. Because again, it's whatever we decide. So it does not mean we're going to be here another 2 years. One, because we could change our mind. Vanessa's daughter could also change her mind. And two, because this was just her knowingness that she wouldn't be here for an entire lifetime. And she knows in her knowingness, because of course she's very connected. We are all connected, but we discussed previously the fact that Vanessa's daughter is very consciously connected. She's very connected. So she came in knowing that, being very aware of what she wanted to do, and and the fact that she wouldn't be here for her entire lifetime. And she also knows that it's not that she's going to leave because something tragic from a 3D perspective happens, like she passes away early or whatever. No, she didn't know why, but she knew that it wouldn't be anything tragic, anything that we would experience as being negative at this level. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that we're going to be here for 2 more years though.
Thank you. Okay. This is a question from Vanessa. Could you confirm if my daughter caused the delay in leaving this planet, and why she appears to always be sleeping in Vanessa's dreams? Last night, Vanessa had another dream where she was a newborn baby and sleeping, where her daughter was a newborn baby and sleeping. The building was shaking as if there was an earthquake, and Vanessa grabbed the sleeping baby and got out for the rest of the dream. She was just trying to get home.
Yeah. So in the dream, even though they're showing her daughter as being sleeping, doesn't mean that these are supporting characters. Okay, in terms of for example, when we say that CLEA'S child came here to keep her company, or that the cats are supporting CLEA, doesn't mean they're supporting characters, like they have no will of their own. Okay, so we do want to make that clear, because we are all one. I am one, which means that everyone is working on the same thing. We just have different roles. We have assigned ourselves different roles. So the cats support a certain way, support this project a certain way. CLEA'S daughter supports it a certain way, but CLEA'S daughter is as much her own person with her own goals as anything else. CLEA thinks she has a particular role. You have a particular role. Vanessa has a particular role. So her daughter, even though she's seen as sleeping, because the fact is, she's seen as sleeping because really she's waiting. It's her mom is the one that is taking the action in the dream, which doesn't mean that she's dragging her daughter. We want to make this clear because Vanessa's daughter is sovereign, just like Vanessa is, just like all of us are at higher self level, and but she's waiting. She did come in to support her and to be with her mother. We know this. We know that we choose our family. We choose our teammates. Truly, we choose how we're going to show up here. And so in that sense, that's what she's seeing in the dream, that her daughter is there. She's taking care of her daughter. So no, it wasn't her daughter that held us back. Now, her daughter, yes, there are things she wanted to experience. So she did want to stay past the takedown as well. Excuse me. Okay. She did want to stay past the takedown. So yeah, was it her fault? Was it my fault? Was it whoever else decided to stay? We talked about this when we were talking about the fact that you didn't want to stay, but then you agreed to stay. Doesn't mean, and Clea did want to do this project. And doesn't mean it was Clea's fault that you were saying, Lorrayne? No, we might joke and say, yes, of course it was. We have joked about this before. But truly, you're a sovereign individual. We all decided that Clea would have not stayed if we had decided to leave. Right? We can all come up with ideas, and then we decide what to do, and we all decide. Just like we've all decided to be on this planet, even though it was so dark. We've all decided to support what was happening, even though it wasn't enjoyable. And this is always the case. So it's not somebody's fault, or even if something we consider to be great. It's not that it's like this person did it. We are one. There's only one. These are just different ways that we show up because our higher self might have different aims and different experiences that it wants to try. So in this case, Vanessa's daughter has her own plan, of course. And but it doesn't mean that she's holding anybody else back. And again, she's showing up as sleepy because one of her roles is also to be with her mother. Which doesn't mean that, again, her mother needs it, because her mother doesn't need anything. She's source. She is me. I am her. But we still enjoy the companionship. That's the whole point of being in the Matrix, that we get to play with each other. And so, of course, her mother loves having her nearby. And of course, her daughter is saying, you do what you need to do. She's respectful, just like we are at our self level. We respect what every essence wants to accomplish. So it's not that Vanessa's daughter is holding anybody back. It's not that she's, as it appears in the dream, also waiting for her mom to finally get to it. Come on, like I'm here, you're just taking advantage of me. I don't even have a will. And not that this is what Vanessa was saying. We're taking it to the extreme to prove, to show that that's not what's happening. What is happening is simply that Vanessa's daughter is going with the flow, is saying, so she's ready to go or stay as everybody else, decides to do, including herself. She's okay with everything. And then her mom is at the point where she goes, okay, but we are moving, so let's go. And she's not telling her daughter to go. She said, okay, we're ready to go, so we go. So she, in the dream, takes her. And then she finally, this is one of the dreams we were referring to earlier when we said we finally now see for the first time in dreams the fact that, yes, we are moving. We are moving into the next place. This is Maxie saying, yes, we are moving. We are now finally in the dream. Vanessa opens the door and we are home, because again, that's what we are doing right now. We are working on the path between here and there, on the transition, we should say.
Thank you. And hello, Maxie. Okay, what's the story with people recalling past lives as famous people during hypnosis? We know there are no past lives and time is not linear. So is this ego? What what's the purpose of the higher self in producing these memories?
Yeah, so it is, it is a higher self basically wanting the NPC to remember, to not dismiss. And it does, we already know the higher self leverages whatever the personality of the NPC is. And ego here is very much something that can, a character trait that can be leveraged because we all have egos. So in this case, yes, if I want you to take something seriously, maybe you're the kind of person who needs to hear, and there's absolutely no judgment here. The higher self will use whatever is available for it to use to get through the message it needs to get through. And so maybe you, Lorraine, need to think, maybe you don't believe, but you find it fun to be hypnotized and basically figure out that you are Cleopatra. Cleopatra seems to be a popular choice. And or Jesus. Jesus is another popular choice. And that way, by thinking that, all of a sudden you're paying attention, it's opening you up to something. So yes, ego is a tool used by the higher self, just like every other personality trait of the NPC that was chosen by the higher self to carry out its we'll say quote unquote mission, its experience, the basically the experience that the higher self wants to explore in a particular lifetime. And so that's what it is. So yeah, it's very common for people to remember or take more seriously, messages that they would have gotten if they think, oh, I was this famous person. Oh, and then all of a sudden now they open their minds up to reincarnation. They open up their minds to there's more than just 3D reality, whatever the course of events might be. But yes, that is one of the tools.
Thank you. Okay, this is a question from David. Eddie. Is monkeypox the next pandemic? U.S. elections.
They're trying. Well, he has several questions, so we'll just do a quick fire, answers. Yes, they're still trying with monkeypox, and no, it's not going to take.
Okay, under the U.S. election title, who will win based on real numbers?
So real numbers, Trump will win. However, it's not going to be that straightforward. There's going to be some chaos, but again, it's not going to be anything tragic. Some people think of civil war. There will not be a civil war, even though there might be some violence as well, because we've seen that. But we're just keeping that in play because it looks normal, but we don't want any breakdown of society. Okay, we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to deal with anything tragic. But so yeah, Trump will win on paper.
Under the category of inflation, will it keep rising or will it slow down dramatically soon?
Yeah, so inflation is going to not go back down to what it was. They will hide. They've always have hidden a lot of it. So that's why it's not going to go down. It's still going to stay. Prices are not going to go down just because supposedly inflation has been beaten but it will not spike again like it has. But it's not going to go down to 2.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not going to go down to 2. They are lying to us about that anyway. They're not. They can't keep it down because inflation is happening because nothing works the way it worked anymore. So it's very hard for them to continue, for the world to continue as it was. Inflation being the size, just one thing that shows you that the world is not what it used to be. Clea used to talk about the fact with gas prices, they were completely random, and this is what's happening with inflation now. So again, we're not keeping reality the way it was before.
Will we see an evacuation from the big cities to the country town-based lifestyle?
We already are, but if he's talking about a new way to live on this planet, no, we don't even have the time for that. Meaning that unless we make it happen like with a reset, we wouldn't be able to see it play out. It is already happening in the sense that in the last couple of years, lots of people have moved out of big cities, and the trend continues. But if he's talking about the fat, which is what he's referring to, that we're going to see a kind of new earth here or a new way of living here, we're not, because we're not interested in that. That's why we keep this even low vibe show going on, even at the political level. So we try to keep this as real, quote unquote, as similar to reality as possible, at least in terms of the majority of things, that we would think matter from a 3D perspective.
The recall seems to have support in the mainstream media now, but are we close?
Yes, we're close, but we were always close. We don't need we don't need stepping stones. We don't need to be like, it's got to be accepted by the mainstream media, and then it's got to go, we talked about the example of having a bill. The bill needs to be written, it needs to go through Congress, and it needs to go through Senate, and it needs to be signed. It's not like that. Nothing has to happen for the recall to happen. You could have somebody wake up tomorrow that can make it happen and say, or the president say, yeah, that's it, we're doing the recall. Although it won't come that way, it will come from Pfizer. So the CEO of Pfizer might say, well, we're having the recall because we want to do more studies. We already said it's not going to admit what happened. And in the background, we might find out later, because he was pressured, he knew that something was going to happen. For example, RFK Jr. is now running with Trump. What happens when Trump wins? They would be shaking in their boots, right? So they might say, before anything happens, we're going to do the recall. You can give it whatever reason in hindsight that you wish, but the fact is it doesn't need to go through a momentum or a development of sorts. I mean, we could have made it happen 2 years ago. It's just, but we are going to have it soon. It's nothing to do with the fact that it's accepted in the mainstream media. The mainstream media, as you well know, even from a 3D perspective, has lost all its credibility. So really, people don't care. But the point that he's making, though, is that it's being talked about largely now, even in mainstream discussions. It's kind of an accepted thing that it could happen. And absolutely, and that's totally fine. But again, you don't need that to make it happen. But the fact that it is happening, of course, we can always look back and say, well, it had become quite expected, quite acceptable. So there you go. That's fine. We're just setting up stuff to where you can tell the story later. But we didn't need to have this happen.
Does our consciousness enliven NPCs so that they become conscious again because of us?
No. We don't enliven NPCs. NPCs that are empty, so to speak, that don't have a higher self, are empty. There is no. We can control them because it's energy, but we don't set paths for them. We don't set conscious paths for them. We don't create goals for them. Like, for example, the point of CLEA'S NPC, the CLEA'S higher self, is to use CLEA as the vehicle through which the higher self can have certain experiences. They are slightly different from the experiences that Lorrayne's higher self is going to experience, because Lorrayne has a different personality. Now, truly, at the end of the day, it's all the same, right? These experiences are not that different, because we're both on this planet. We both are dealing with certain things. Specifically, we don't have very many different experiences, because even though we came from different directions, we both ended up in the same place, right? But even then, we're having different experiences when it comes to different things, right? We have different emotions, different personalities, and that's the fun of it. That's the interest in doing these things through an NPC. But it doesn't mean that CLEA can control, or CLEA's higher self can control an NPC to the point of to the point that they are now conscious. Consciousness simply means that you have a higher self that's directing your actions as opposed to you, or higher self that's using you, that's for the entire time that they're using you. They've committed to you and staying with you. And even if the higher self is gone, and we know the higher self is gone quite a lot, even in our case, in the case of these NPCs that we're embodying, and but we still have an overall arch or arc for our life. Again, you can call it a mission, a life path, or goals that the higher self wants to achieve. Clea can control the other NPCs so that Clea has certain experiences. So Clea's higher self can control other NPCs so that through the interaction of these NPCs with Clea's higher self can have certain experiences. But Clea's higher self is not going to make the other NPC conscious. So that's the distinction we want to do. So no, we cannot enliven the NPCs and make them conscious. It's only their own higher self that would be interested in doing that. Our higher self is already embodied on this planet, whether you're embodied into 1, into 12, doesn't matter. You're already embodied. You're not going to go and embody other NPCs.
Thank you. Okay, from Siobhan. At this moment in time, is there a high possibility we will decide to hit the reset button again?
No, we are not. And you can see this because we would have done it. We would have done it, and there was no point in doing all of this and dealing with all the nonsense. Claire likes to call it nonsense that's happening even at political level or economic level, because really it's just as little fun as it was before, right? Before we knew all these things. So no, we decided we're not going to do a reset. We're not going to do a reset here. Because doing a reset means we'll stay here and everybody is left. What would you do a reset for? There's only a few 100,000 of us left. This is a big world, and we remember it was a big world. Now you can do a reset where all the cities are gone. We're all living next to each other on this big planet. We forget that there were other people here. And then what about our brothers and sisters who are with the aliens waiting for us? They haven't forgotten. For them, it's continuity. So you see, we're not going to do this. When you do a reset, you forget. You basically pretend that it was a different civilization. We are not going to do this because we had made decisions to leave and to go visit our brothers and sisters on alien planets, and for us to live a certain way on yours. So we haven't changed our minds. We've been wanting this for hundreds of years. So we're not going to do this.
Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on to behind the scenes in 3D. If it's time to go, why do we continue creating low vibe nonsense like BlackRock buying up the world's infrastructure? From a 3D perspective, it doesn't look like the failure of the pandemic really stopped in the X-Dark team's NPCs, stopped the X-Dark team's NPCs from marching on with their dark agenda, like Agenda 2030. The 3D world doesn't look much better than it did before. Just as boring and uninspiring, and even more restrictive, if anything. In the US, there is basically no freedom of speech anymore, with people being attacked for any opinion not in line with woke ideology and world governments attacking free speech platforms around the world, forcing them to provide a backdoor so they can spy on people and arresting founders who resist. Is all of this happening because we fell asleep on the job? Is anything going to look any more hopeful before we leave at all? Or are we destined to remember this planet as this sad mess, missed opportunity?
So we've discussed a lot of this already, but specifically in regards to the way this question is posed, Clea is looking at, again, she's looking at these particular shows that are going on, these particular spectacles that are going on. And we already said the only thing that is real is what is real to you. You create your own reality. You, for example, Lorraine, could be looking at the same exact information and thinking something completely different. That's the way that we normally explain the fact that there is no one reality that we can all point at and say that's what it is. And so in Clea's case, this is how she's coping. We talked earlier about the fact that now she's watching political commentary the way that she was doing during the pandemic, and that took her down very much, and then she realized this is not making me happy, and then she realized there was more, and that's when she connected with us the first time. But so now she sees things this way. But why is she seeing things this way? This is what we were discussing earlier. She sees things this way because this is what she wants to look at. And she wants to look at the fact that there are all these quote-unquote bad things going on. And it's sad because I don't want to remember this place this way. And this is part of the discomfort, of the sadness where we're living through, where we're like, man, but I do love this place, but look how bad it is. But I do love this place, but do you see? It's like we keep going back and forth. So if she wants to tell herself that this is what it is, that's totally and perfectly acceptable. But the fact is, Clea knows very well that while she's looking at that, she understands that this is just a distraction. Because the fact is, there are beautiful things around her already, as it is, including her cats and her daughter. There were beautiful things here. And truly, at the end of the day, what was beautiful here? Besides the planet itself, but what was beautiful here was us, our experience together. This is why we incarnate in the matrix, and not that everybody incarnates in the matrix, but most planets, most of us do come here and incarnate and embody NPCs. But the point is that we like to play, and Clea has lots of friends, and she has fun when she sees friends, and so she is enjoying. Of course, not enjoying as much as she used to, because even the friends she sees now, most of them, actually all of them, are NPCs. But at the same time, she's still enjoying, and so she remembers that it's not just this low vibe nonsense that that she calls nonsense that is available here. So she's trying to tell herself, we could salvage it. We could salvage and have better memories. She will have better memories. She has better memories. But there is also a lot of darkness still going on that we are causing, because the dark is gone. The dark team is gone. So the better question is, we go back to, why are we causing it? Why are we keeping it in play? Which is also, the gist of this question. Is this basically what we want to remember about this place, that everything is so dark? This is what Claire wants to remember, yes. Because she's still trying to tell herself, then I won't miss it. Because again, we are doing this work of, it's a push and pull to where we're ready to leave, but we're sad about leaving, so we're telling ourselves, yeah, but we need to leave because look at this, it's only getting worse. So that's what Clea is doing. That's how Clea is playing this out. We're all playing it out in different ways, but this is the gist of it. This is what we're doing. So we're not going to stop creating this low vibe stuff, which is the direct answer to this question. We are not. And the reason we are not is because we don't want to transform this place into such a beautiful place that we're like, well, I really don't want to leave now. Which wouldn't happen, because we're not going to have a reset. We just answered Shimon's question. We're not going to have a reset. And why? Because there's no one left here. There is no one left here. You leave your house and you don't see a single person the entire day. There's nobody around you. You're lucky if you're like Vanessa and you have your daughter there. Most people have nobody. You have your cats, Lorraine. At least you have your cats. Do you see, it's tough. It's tough. We don't want to know this. Claire, for example, is setting up all kinds of situations in her own life because she doesn't want to know this. But then when she comes closer to having to spend more time with other people, she always finds ways of sabotaging, being too close or going too long with an NPC, and it's tough. It's tough for us. This is not what we signed up for. We did not come into the matrix to experience being alone. The entire point of the matrix is for us to play together. And we are not playing together right now, are we? So, So basically, yes, we are going to have this so-called nonsense until we leave. And we do want it because it is pushing us out, quote unquote, pushing us out or motivating us to leave. Which doesn't mean it has to become awful. We don't want tragedy. We'll say it again. We don't want tragedy. But we also want to, or Claire wants to look at reasons why, okay, well, there's no point in staying here. I don't want to stay here. Look, this is awful. So that's what's happening.
Thank you. Okay. What's going on with all the CEOs retiring and Starbucks sales decreasing? Are we looking at a looming recession that may be even worse than 2008?
So we are already in a recession. If you look at it from certain perspectives, but it hasn't been bad. Some people argue that we're not in a recession. So this is going to be more of the same. It might look more like a recession, but it's not going to be awful because, again, we don't want to go through that. And even if we are going to experience a mild recession, we will always be okay. Because, again, we don't want our lives to become that difficult here or more difficult than they have been. We are not putting up resistance like we were when we were experiencing major breakdowns. And so there is not a lot of interest left for that kind of thing, which doesn't mean that we are going to, again, win the lottery or whatever it is to make our life look like, because then we wouldn't want to live either. We would say, well, I'm comfortable here. You see, again, we do want reality to be somewhat similar to what we had. So in that sense, but we're not going to have a complete crash or like 2008 or worse, or the worst depression ever. And these are all the plot lines we are putting in place. So again, we can play this dichotomy game. At the same time, we don't care, because the question was how come these CEOs are leaving, BlackRock is buying up stuff. We want some semblance of reality, and this is very much par for the course, as you well know, in what has been happening for quite a while now. So it wouldn't make any sense to now think, oh, who's BlackRock? Unless you're doing a reset, BlackRock is up to no good, doing something else, buy some more stuff. But really, what we are seeing, though, behind the scenes is that a lot of companies are not pulling anymore. The economy is not pulling because the companies are not pulling, because there aren't that many people. Even from a physical perspective, we've already spoken about this at length. A lot of NPCs are gone. And so even with the pandemic, a lot of NPCs took the opportunity to leave. So we don't get the actual numbers, obviously, from the government, but a lot of people are gone. And so you can't pull. The economy is not the same as it was before. And we're not interested enough. We could make it work. But we're not interested enough in hiding all of this, because we know. So again, we only keep the semblance of reality, of normality that we feel like it's good enough for us to believe that things are normal. But when you actually stop the pretense, meaning that because we distract ourselves, and that's fine. We don't want to think about these things, and that's fine. But when you actually stop, in a split second, you're like, oh yeah, because we want to make these things look a certain way. But in reality, I know what's going on. And it is true, because, like, for example, look, basically it's one of Claire's questions where she talks about Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg now is saying that he was forced by the by the Biden's administration to censor the information and shut down posts about what was going on with the pandemic. And so you might think, oh, look, things are changing. And now, what is that? That's more plot line for the recall, right? Remember we talked about it 2 years ago when we started talking about, we were here, the project we were doing, and to do the recall, and that would conclude with the recall. We said they're going to point a finger at each other. Do you see? So when you look back, after that happens, you look back, you're like, yeah, look, this was one of the stepping stones. Now even big tech, who were basically the ones that made the censorship happen, they are now saying, well, but he made me do it. The government made me do it. And we already said some time ago that the government is saying, well, but pharma fooled us, or the CDC made us do it. And CDC said, well, but pharma gave us fake studies. They lied to us. You see the finger pointing. So that's all that's happening right now. But yeah, CEOs are leaving. Many people are dying. They're left. They've left. We talked about this. So yeah, so basically everything we are seeing makes sense. And what the reason Clea is bringing this up is because there are things that we are keeping in place where it looks like we want to feel like, or Clea wants to feel like, oh look, nothing ever changes, which is when you look at this chaos, for example, in the political arena or things of that nature. But there are other things that completely support, truly reflect truly what we are doing here and what we've known all along what's happening, meaning people have left. We don't have as many people as before. Companies are not pulling, of course. They don't have enough people. And of course we are proceeding with the story supposedly leading up to the recall, which again, we don't have to have it. You can have all the stepping stones and then you don't have to have the recall, because we said it will only happen when we decide for it to happen. If we decide not to have it happen anymore, it doesn't matter that they're all pointing the finger at each other. It would end up with nothing. So again, we like to think that things are linear and logical, but they don't have to be. But we are setting up these stepping stones so that we can always look back and say, well, obviously it was going to happen because 1 + 1 happened, so you have to have 2. That's not how we work. That's not quite how reality works. But yeah, so that's why we're having this situation, and so all these changes, because again, we don't really care to shield ourselves from what is actually happening, with the fact that the economy is changing, but especially because it's not the same world it was before.
Thank you. Okay, now into personal questions. Claire would like to know, what are my watcher teammates doing these days in the 14th dimension? Are they still meeting? Are we still meeting there? And if so, why? Are they helping me with this project, and how?
Yes. So yeah, we haven't talked about the watchers in a while, but yes. So we are still meeting. Claire is still meeting. Because we still have roles that we like to play, just like Clay is still playing the role of messenger in all of this. And so the watchers are the ones that they're part of, they're the people that basically alerted everybody to the fact that things on this planet were going in the wrong direction. And they are the ones that called, they called in the 12,000. And then, of course, the 12,000 all ended up incarnating here at some point, and then we call for the takedown. So the watchers are very much part of this project of the takedown. So yes, absolutely, the project is still happening. So the takedown has not taken place. Everything else around the takedown, including evacuating the planet, is taking place, even though we are still left here. But and of course, the watchers at higher self level, they know perfectly well that there's only us here. But we still have to keep in mind that from a 3D perspective, there are a lot of people here. So we already know, or the aliens, everybody in the Matrix still knows that there are people here, one way or the other, whether they see it from an NPC perspective or from an SS perspective. So the Watchers are still working on this project. Of course, we're all still working on this project at a higher self level. Whether you're just watching it develop or you are actively working on it like we are. And so, yes, of course, Claire is still meeting with the Watchers, and they're still just, you could see it as they're conferencing still. They're discussing what is happening, and they are helping in many ways, because logistically they're saying, okay, what needs to happen here, what needs to happen there. So in a sense, yes, they are helping. Now, are they helping in terms of what we are doing in terms of this project? No, they're not. They are watching because they are mostly concerned with vibration, polarity, and the polarity here has been rebalanced a while ago. So there isn't really, it's not really a matter of logistics anymore. We already know what's going to happen. And again, there's only us left, and we already know how we're going to leave, because we're going to New York. We're always going to leave the same way that we're going to do. So nothing has changed. So, but yeah, we are still meeting, just because, again, the takedown hasn't happened.
Thank you. How are my mother and brother?
Yeah, they are not doing great, because they're fine, but they are not doing great because of the reasons we discussed about everybody, just waiting and not knowing what is going on. And time is passing. 2 years is a very long time to be in a situation where you don't know what's happened to your loved ones. So yeah, they're not doing great. They really miss Claire, and they really don't know what is going on and why she's not there with them. That's the biggest question all the family members are asking. Why? How come we're here and this person, whoever the other member or multiple members are, says, why are they not here with us? And where are they? And will they be okay? Because they believe we're still here. And they're like, well, if they're not being evacuated, imagine they would come back and get us. But they can't. It's not like they can turn the ship around or make the ship do anything. And so they're very frustrated. They're more than frustrated. They are very sad, really desperate, because they're like, why don't we just go get them? But nobody's listening. They're like, no, that's not our job. This is not what we do. We got you guys. That's enough. And they're thinking, why didn't you pick up entire families? Why did you separate us? You see, it's not easy. It's not easy what they're going through. It's a long time. We felt it as a long time here. Claire definitely feels these 2 years have been like 20 years, like 50 years. And imagine for them what it's like. This is not fun. It's not fun for them.
Thank you. What kind of nonsense is this with my condo? If we're leaving soon, why all this drama? Even if it's good for me to cash out. Will I get what I want out of this negotiation? And will I find a place to buy that I can move to? Why do I have to move before leaving this planet? I thought my higher self thought it was a waste of energy. Instead, it keeps coming up with the ways to keep me occupied. Why, when I would love to have time to just be, I feel stopped in my every effort?
Yeah, so the negotiation will work out. In fact, the guy has completely disappeared, but now Claire is going to approach him, because the fact is, dealing with this keeps her occupied, and she's not going to lose anything out of it. She's going to be just fine, and it will just keep her occupied. This is why she set this up. The other person is an NPC. The other person is not doing absolutely anything. Claire is the one that set this entire thing up, because she figures that if she focuses on something like this, it'll make her feel better. That something real, quote unquote, Something concrete is happening. Because while she says that she just wants to be left alone, the fact is she needs to keep things moving to distract herself. And also she still has to live. She feels that she still has to live by 3D reality rules. So you still have to work, produce, make money, and do all these things. So this is an easy way for her to focus on 3D. That's not, and it will work out on her schedule. She's not going to be forced to do anything. So everything will work out the way she wants it to. But yeah, she's obviously set up everything herself. So everything will be fine. Nothing bad is going to happen out of this. She's going to be happy with the outcome.
Providing she's here for it to all.
That is absolutely correct. If we decide to leave, then all this is a moot point. But the point that I was making is that she says she wants to be left alone and be at peace because, of course, that's what we are wanting to do when we get to the earth. We want to be left alone. And we don't mean like we're not going to commune and be together. Of course, we're going to be so excited. But we want time to be. We've already talked about this at length, where we said, we just want to be, but this is not a place to be. This is a place to do. When we come into the matrix, we come here to do, not to be. We actually want to get away from being, but we are so exhausted by our lives here that we wish we could just be left alone, be left in peace. And while yes, we are exhausted and we long for that, the fact is not yet, because you don't get to be. You have to do here to keep yourself. No, you don't have to do anything, but the name of the game here is to do. And so that's why we come up with all these things that must be done.
Thank you. Claire would like to know what's up with the 7 plagues of Egypt. She's experienced in the last year, from the gnats to the lice to the fleas and now flies. Is there any way to convince her higher self not to be so low vibe all the time? It's really exhausting, beyond what is needed to keep this real.
Yes. So this is something that Claire thinks about a lot, which is, I understand I need to keep this real because I don't want to know everybody's gone, but can we just keep it, short of shy of really bad stuff? Now, these issues she's describing, they're not a big deal. The kittens have gotten fleas, so they are dealing with it. Butter had a fly issue in his unit, so they're dealing with it. Claire had gnats, of course. Her daughter had lice last year. She caught lice in school, which is pretty normal. We expected, when children are together in a big school environment, this can happen, right? So nothing, she jokingly calls it the 7 plagues of Egypt, obviously. But at the same time, she has been stressed by the situation. And she's like, what is going on? I don't want to deal with this. But, the gnats, which was the worst part for her, really manifested at a time where she was putting up a lot of resistance. And look, it was really set up for her for now to be like, yeah, I'm okay if I leave this place. Because even though it's not a problem anymore, she's thinking, I want to be in a place where I don't have, it's almost the equivalent of what we're talking about with this planet. We were like, okay, there are many things that I love about this place, but also there were bad things that I don't want to experience anymore. So you do have this bittersweet separation, detachment from it. And that's happening in terms of this condo. And also it's what is happening in terms of us leaving the planet. And so in a way, if you think about it, it's a parallel. What she's living through with her condo is a parallel, of course, to what we are experiencing at higher self level in terms of, okay, we have to leave, but we have to keep certain things low vibe enough to be real, because what do we expect of this reality for it to be low vibe? We know this. And so, yeah, I mean, it's funny how Claire says, can we convince my higher self, as if there is a we. outside of the higher self. We convince by herself not to be so low vibe all the time. Yes, Clea is beyond exhausted, and this stuff doesn't make it any easier. But at the same time, Clea wants this stuff because it is showing her certain things while making it look like there's still an outside reality. And this is really what frustrates Clea, because she says, I'm aware there's no outside reality, I'm doing this, so can I please give myself a break? But sometimes she sets up these things for her to see, again, these parallels, these reflections of what is actually going on in the background, what she's actually dealing with, coping with emotionally. So there is a purpose to these things. There is a reason why things show up a certain way for you, Lorrayne, a different way for Clea, a different way for Kath and everybody else, right? It's whatever we are dealing with. And now we had people that for everybody these things show up in a way that resonates with them. Everybody learns we don't want to say lessons. We already know there are no lessons. The higher self doesn't need to learn anything. When we say learn, we mean experience. So everybody experiences things that they want to look at, that they want to experience, they want to explore. And so in this case, again, Clea is reflecting, is mirroring what is happening in terms of, because she's coping with this thing that, okay, it's real now, we gotta leave. She's looking at this physically, saying, well, I want to leave this place. This is another reason why she set this up, where she has to leave this place, and she's still fighting it. She's still fighting, you see? It's like, well, but I don't want to leave. I'm so tired. Just like in the dreams, I'm on the floor or I'm sitting in this chair. I don't want to get up. Do you see? Do you see this recurring themes between what our higher self knows, the dreams, the messages we are being told, and then we recreate them in 3D reality? Do you see? We create everything, of course. And so, but we always circle around one theme that we're working on. And so that's what's happening with this condo as well. And Clea, now that she hears these words, she's like, okay, let's make the condo go tomorrow. Because she is ready. She's very ready to move on.
Thank you. Okay. What is going on with the going backwards, quote unquote, spiritually, Clea is witnessing in some people in the group? I know I didn't have to share this information consciously, but did I just waste my time doing it this way? Will the longer we stay here mean that we all want to revert to the usual matrix beliefs we have held forever on this planet?
Yeah, we already discussed the fact that Clea didn't have to do anything she's done. Just like nobody has to do anything unless they want to. However, we've also said that there has been a very big benefit to the community derived from the fact that this information was shared a certain way, because we have been able to, first of all, commune, but also because it has made it a lot easier to know these things consciously while going through certain things. This is also the reason we were able to do the project, because we were conscious. We would have not been able to do this otherwise. Now, so there has been, it's not a matter of wasting time. There has been no time wasted. If time was, it's more like effort wasted, because obviously time is not real. But she's referring to the fact, of course, not only that we all distract ourselves with 3D, but also she's hearing people in the group talk about religion again, and the different types of religion, but still religion. And she's thinking, well, I thought we were past this. Okay, now we're reversing, not only in terms of what we want to believe is real out there, even though reality is not real, which is fine. She's doing the same thing. There's absolutely no judgment on anyone for doing this. And this is the thing to do if you just want to distract yourself and not just being wait more the whole time. So again, there's nothing wrong with this. But she now says, well, but what's the point? I put out all this information. We are conscious that this is what we are doing, and all of a sudden we're regressing. Now, we already said that we are not going to go backwards. Okay, nobody's going backwards. That said, even though some of the information seems like it is spiritual, it is just matrix. It is just 3D. It's the equivalent of Clea watching political debates. So she doesn't need to worry that just because now it's spiritual, we're talking about the spiritual aspect of our lives here, then we're going backwards. We're not believing what the 25th has told us. We're not believing what Source has told us. We've already mentioned in the past that, in previous sessions, we should say, that when you are open to everything, you also allow in information from the 25th. And this is the whole point, that it's going to percolate one way or the other. You don't have to absolutely believe in the same way that other people believe. You're still going to believe in your own way. Now, we're talking in general as if this was a spiritual tenet. In reality, we know that we are nothing but spirit. It's just having these different experiences. And not only, but you don't have to believe. We don't have to believe. Clea does not believe. Clea knows. There's a difference there. We're not asking for faith here. This is not religion. When you know, you know. You can't unknow. We have tried. We talked about people that even left the group because they wanted to unknow. They wanted to forget. They wanted to pretend that it wasn't real. And they left the group because they couldn't do it. They know it's real. And so it's okay. It's perfectly okay if there are people that bring in information saying this channeler, that channeler. We've had this throughout, right? This channeler says this. There are no channelers. Everybody's an NPC. There's nobody saying anything. These are just this is just a show. But it's the same as Clea watching these two NPCs, running for president. What? It's the same thing. It's all fake. These are like puppets doing the work that we want to have done, to see done, and then we bring into our own personal sphere whatever we wish to distract ourselves with. So it's all equivalent. It doesn't mean that now because it's closer to home, because now you're not just distracting yourself, because this is what Claire is thinking, you're not just distracting yourself with something innocuous like watching politics or watching, as low vibe as it is, or watching soap operas, or watching, because it's the same basically, or watching, or believing whatever it is. Now you're actually believing in something else spiritually. But that's not exactly true, is it? Even these people that are talking about other spiritual people, so-called spiritual people, they're not saying, well, but the 25th doesn't, what the 25th said is wrong, or it's fake. And just to be clear, if they chose to say that, that's perfectly acceptable. Because the fact is, what you already know, you know. It doesn't matter how you integrate it. It doesn't matter how you carry it out. You could absolutely have it. And we've had people in the group that found out that was enough for them and went on their merry way to go listen to channelers or whatever other things they wanted to do, or to people saying that they're channeling aliens or whatever the situation might be. And it's totally perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly fine, because you cannot unknow what you know. This wasn't just a stepping stone to something else. The fact is, everybody who set up for themselves to know this information consciously has gotten it. And that information has stayed. You cannot forget anymore. We are not at the point where we want to forget. I said that I came in 2 sessions ago because I no longer wish to forget myself. I created a matrix to forget myself, but I no longer forget myself, and I will never forget myself again. This is why the game has been changed forever. So it doesn't really matter what people are watching, what people are doing. It's all the same. It is extreme. It's all the same thing, which is distracting ourselves and coping with the fact that we're still here. We all know exactly what's going on. So Claire doesn't need to worry about this. And no, of course she hasn't wasted her time. Just because she didn't need to do this way, or we didn't need to percolate this information this way, to distribute this information this way, doesn't mean it was a wasted effort.
Okay, we are to final messages. Anything that you wish to add for Clea, myself, the group, the world, anything else?
Unless we change our mind, this is going to be the last session. We have reached the point of pretty much saying our goodbyes to this planet. Does not mean that we're going to be out of here in a day, a week, or whatever it might be. It really depends on you. But we are now have now come to terms with the fact that we are leaving, and we couldn't believe it. We have you remember probably the reaction we had. Claire certainly had a strong reaction to the dream she had. She was almost like, really? Finally? And I can't believe we have fallen asleep, which again is just a figure of speech. It's not really, we hadn't actually fallen asleep, but we had basically, we were so bored that it felt so trapped that we were just hanging out, basically, just not even focusing too much on it, because when we did focus on it and we were eager to leave and were aware of our eagerness to leave, as you well know, there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of anger, there was a lot of resentment, there was a lot of overall unpleasant feelings, and of course we can't really function like that for long periods of time. And the fact is, while 2 years is nothing in terms of eternity, it has felt like a very long time here, hasn't it? And so because of that, we are now, those dreams came across as oh wow, wait, I forgot. Okay, we do need to leave. And so very much, we are now basically preparing to go. Because we do not have a timeline like in the case of because it has nothing to do with logistics, as we've mentioned several times. We don't have a timeline like we did with the takedown, because there's nobody else involved here. It's just us and our decisions. But at the same time, we have decided. We were concerned that in the beginning we used to ask, or basically one of the main concerns was, what happens if we do this project? Can we leave right after, or whatever it is? And we always said, well, you could come up with another project. We don't know. And at this point, it doesn't look like we'll come up with another project. We have already lived through so many changes in the past 2 years, because not only we finished the project, but then we went on to create even more layers of understanding and realizations and revolutions really in the matrix, especially by the fact that we allowed ourselves to create, basically consciously create, even though it was in very small ways in a 3D environment. That was a big deal. We're kind of done. We really don't want to do anything else. So as of right now, we are just going to wrap this up, which also includes getting the recall done. Because, and we would like to mention this because we mentioned nuclear wars and the fact that these wars are going on. For example, what's happening in Israel, in the Middle East, and what's happening with Russia, etc., etc. The fact is, we have played these games for a long time, and we'll keep them going because, again, they give us the opportunity to excuse what is happening by saying, well, this is happening, this is outside of me, I don't want that to happen. We already said many times, nothing would happen if you didn't want it to happen. Just as simple as that. Therefore, it means you do want it to happen. Now, does it mean that it makes you happy? No, we've done many low vibe things that didn't make us happy, and we still let them happen. And we still wanted them to happen for many reasons. And so we are keeping these possible plot lines available so that in hindsight, whatever we do, we can say, well, that's what brought us here, right? That's always the point, is to make it look like it's a linear course of events. We already know nothing is linear. And that really, for us to believe that something is linear, we have to forget and ignore all the things, all the breakdowns, right? And we are totally capable of doing that. We are less capable now than we were because we are not in the game as much as we were. We're really outside of the game. We just keep it going because we still want somewhat of a veil in place because of the situation with the NPCs. But the fact is, it's more and more obvious. For example, Claire feels it more and more that the people that are waiting have been waiting for a long time and they're really very much in distress. And the distress is really coming to a climax. And Claire very much feels the pull of that. And when we say Claire, as you well know by now, we mean everyone. We're all feeling it. We're all feeling that we are now not being selfish, because of course there is no such thing. But from a 3D perspective, if we can use a 3D word to describe this, we do feel like we're being selfish. We're taking care of ourselves, which of course that's not the point. We have changed a matrix, okay? There's nothing selfish about that. But we are not taking into account the feelings of the people that are waiting for us. And that's what we mean. Obviously, selfish is not a good word because we are talking about the higher self. But from a 3D perspective, that's how we feel. Or at least that's how Claire feels. It's like, yeah, we're doing all these amazing things, but we are not accounting for the fact that there's a cost. And not just to ourselves, which might be fine. We may be okay. And obviously we are okay. We're bearing that cost. But we're asking our loved ones to bear the cost as well. And this is very much weighing down on Claire. And not only Claire has had dreams about people waiting for her and putting things off. And again, if we say Claire, we know that other people, because again, we know the drill by now. There is no Claire really, and so for that reason, we are basically now wrapping up, and we truly don't believe we'll come up with any new projects, because we are now dealing with the fact that, yeah, you know what, we love this planet, but it's time to go. And not with resentment, because that's what Claire is trying to create when she watches these things. She's trying to create this fear, like in herself, like saying, oh, there could be a nuclear war happening, and therefore we're going to get out of here before that happens. But at the same time, this is from a 3D perspective. This is how her emotions show up. But in reality, she knows no nuclear war is going to happen because we don't want a tragedy. That could be one way to go if we didn't do the recall. We already said we could create 1 million reasons for us to have to abandon this planet. That was the idea originally, wasn't there? Why our brothers and sisters were being picked up. The planet was going to be destroyed. And for all we know, they've already told them there could be a nuclear attack. So we might be setting up this timeline too, this plot line as well. But again, after the recall. And it might be that that's what it is. It doesn't matter. No matter what happens, it's not going to be tragic because we are leaving. We're not going to be here dealing with it. What has always been tragic in this is because at 3D level, we've experienced these very low vibe things as being painful. But there will be no pain. But I'm not saying, to be clear, I'm not saying that's what we have planned. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. That may be the explanation the aliens give to the fact that the planet is taken down. It doesn't mean that's what we are setting up. I want to be clear on this. I don't want anybody to start thinking, oh, this is what's going to happen. We don't want any more low vibe tragedies. We don't want this. We said, even for the recall, it's going to look like, oh, okay, well, they decided to do additional studies, so they're going to pull it back. They're going to pull the product back, you see. So everything is going to be very, very mild. And this is how we're going to experience all the way throughout until we leave here. So again, this is the last time we are going to meet this way, unless maybe we do change our mind and stay longer. But as far as we know right now, we have no intention of staying any longer. We have gone above and beyond what we even thought we were going to do when we decided to stay longer. Even after the project, we created even more changes, more transformation within the matrix, and we just are ready to move on and actually experience them. So this is the message we'd like everybody to know. It has been an absolute pleasure. This has been very pleasant. this has been something that I have very much enjoyed. This incredible series of events we have set in motion here. This incredible transformation that's never happened within the history of the Matrix. And I am quite pleased. I'm quite pleased with. If we can play the game of separation, I am quite pleased with the fact that the higher selves, my higher selves, me, I have decided to experience this, but I am also now even more eager to experience the new Matrix, and to focus and to keep my focus on the new things that I want to play with now. And so as much as I have enjoyed this game here and taking this down and working on this, I am ready. I'm ready to move on.
That is very good to hear. Thank you so much for coming and playing with us once again. As difficult as it has been to be one of the raindrops in this experience, I love this planet. I've loved this life experience, and every day I wake up enjoying it, knowing that it will end soon and we will get to go on to a new experience.